Let me say. All right, good evening and welcome to the June 25th meeting of the Garden Grove City Council. Madam Clerk, would you like to call roll?
Councilmember Brightigam.
Here.
Councilmember O'Neill.
Here.
Councilmember Tu-Ha Nguyen. Here. Councilmember Bowie.
Yeah.
Councilmember Kim Nguyen.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Klopfenstein. Here. And Mayor Jones.
Here. Can I ask Councilmember Tu-Ha Nguyen to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance after an invocation by Maria Sype?
Please stand and prepare yourselves according to your faith. Dear gracious Lord, we humbly ask that you bless all who are gathered here this evening and the work that we seek to do. Help us to work in harmony as we strive to make the best decisions for our community. Purify our intentions, strengthen our purpose, and grant that in serving our community, we may also serve you. Amen.
Amen.
Put your right hand over your heart, face a flag, and repeat after me.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And with that, we'll first adjourn over to the Housing Authority. So we'll hand it over to Fat to lead the Housing Authority.
Sure. At this point, I would like to open the Housing Authority meeting for the 25th of June. Is there a presentation from staff, I understand?
I need to call roll first.
Oh, yes, correct.
Okay.
Please.
Commissioner Beckles.
Present.
Commissioner Brightigam.
Here.
Commissioner Jones.
Here.
Commissioner Klopfenstein.
Here.
Commissioner Tu-Ha Nguyen. Here. Commissioner O'Neill.
Here.
Commissioner Solorio is absent. Vice Chair Kim Nguyen.
Here.
And Chair Bowie.
Yeah. So I understand there is a Housing Authority budget report. Do we have a staff presentation?
We have two consent items. Can we start with consent items?
Pardon me?
Consent.
Consent item first? Okay. How about oral communication? I do not see any card. So I would like to close oral communication, and we have two consent items, 2A and 2B.
Move to approve.
Second.
Please call for the vote.
Motion received, 8 yes votes.
Okay. And do we have, I got a amendment here that we have a Housing Authority budget for presentation from staff.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, members of the council, I'd like to turn it over to Patricia Song, our finance director, and her staff to update you on the budget.
Good evening, Chairman and Commissioners.
I'm sorry, and Danny Hinn, who's the head of our Housing Authority, will be participating in that.
The Section 8 Housing Assistance Program is federally funded through the Department of Housing and Urban Development to assist very low-income families, seniors, and disabled persons in payment of rent on the privately owned rental market. While the Housing Authority is allocated with 2,337 vouchers, it is only able to assist approximately 2,200 families at the current funding level and administer an additional 300 families from incoming portability. Incoming portabilities are participants from housing authorities from other jurisdictions who moved into Garden Grove. An administrative fee is paid through the Garden Grove Housing Authority to administer these families. All Section 8 rental assistants are inspected before admissions and annually or biannually to ensure they are decent, safe, and sanitary. Each year, Housing Authority staff performs over 2,800 inspections. We also administer the Family Self-Sufficiency Program. This program is for our current Section 8 participants and is designed to encourage tenant participation in education and career development. In addition, the Garden Grove Housing Authority has assets from former Garden Grove Agency. These assets include land purchased from the Housing Set-Aside Funds and several affordable housing agreements. Revenues generated from these agreements are used for operational costs of administering the assets. I will now turn over to the Finance Director, Ms. Patricia Song, to continue with additional information.
Benny. Good evening, Chairman, Commissioners. I'm happy to present to you fiscal years 2019 through 2021 biannual budget for the Housing Authority. As Danny mentioned, the Housing Authority administers the programs that is federally funded. The authority serves over 2,000 low-income families from outreach efforts to annual inspections. This slide presents to you a balanced budget for the next 2 years from the Housing Authority. Allocations from the federal government totaled about $35 million, and it is used for our voucher program for about $33 million. There's also administrative cost for the city to maintain the program in about $3 million for each year. This is a balanced budget for both years. And the uses, over 90% of expenses are for the housing voucher program. And that concludes our presentation. I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Is there any question for staff? Okay, do I have a motion?
You need to open the public hearing.
Is there anyone who would like to speak on this matter? I do not see any card. If it's not, I will now close the public hearing. Do I have a motion?
I have a motion, but I'd like to make a comment. I know that staff frequently meets with our congressional members to update them on our housing authority and some of the issues that we're facing. I know you guys do a great job of that. One suggestion I'd like to make is that if on a quarterly basis we can send them an updated memo kind of highlighting some of the issues that we have per the report. We're not funded at full capacity, some of the shortfalls as far as the number of vouchers we are allotted versus the ones that we give out. Just to keep them abreast of this issue. I know that they're on top of it and have worked with us to kind of address our concerns, but if we can maybe do this on a quarterly basis to keep them up to date and make sure that this isn't something that gets forgotten, I think that that's something we should do. And I motion to approve.
Let's go for the vote.
Are you having a problem with it?
Got to switch back to the other screen.
Okay, there it goes. Motion received, 8 yes votes.
Okay. Matter from the Chair and Commission Directors. We have item 4A.
Item 4A is a report regarding opening the Section 8 Rental Assistance Program, waiting lists for veterans as requested by the Housing Authority, and Mr. Wen is here to give the report.
Good evening, Chairman and Commissioners. At the last Housing Authority meeting, Commissioners directed staff to research regulations and procedures regarding opening the current waiting list for veterans. In July 2010, the Garden Grove Housing Authority accepted application for its Section 8 Rental Assistance Program and received over 17,000 applications. Currently, there are approximately 14,000 applicants still on the waiting list. Program regulations provide flexibility for each housing authority to develop an application process to meet a particular circumstance. The process must be consistent with determining which applicants should be placed on the waiting list and also comply to HUD's rules on non-discrimination. The application and selection process must be stated in the Housing Authority Administrative Plan and approved by the Housing Commission. To further fair housing opportunity, the Housing Authority must advertise in local newspaper of general circulation and also through minority media. The public notice must state any limitation on who may apply to be on the waiting list. The Housing Authority will establish internal procedures to support the objective and assign staff for implementation. The decision to open the waiting list depends upon local needs. However, HUD guidelines state that the waiting list should not grow to such a size that the wait for housing assistance is unreasonable. And the waiting list should be closed if the Housing Authority has insufficient funds to assist all applicants on the waiting list within a reasonable period of time, which is no more than 12 to 24 months. With over 14,000 applicants currently on the waiting list, it is estimated that it will take over 15 years to assist all qualifying applicants on the current waiting list. Staff is presently working with agencies such as the Long Beach Department of Veteran Affairs and 211 Orange County to link homeless or low-income veterans to available services. We will continue to communicate with HUD and local congressional offices to promote funding for veterans. That concludes my report, and I'm available for questions.
So according to this, we have to operate under the very strict guideline by HUD. And even though they do not define reasonable in terms of what that should be, because of the number of applicants still on the waiting list, this would be way more than the 24-month period that we that I think would make sense. And that's why it would be difficult for us to open it to only veterans, even if that is the case. Now, if we agree to, at this point, to do nothing, is it possible for us to monitor how many veterans asking us for help that have not yet been on the list, and how many of them have been helped by the VA? Can we track that at the very least?
We can track that. Just on my personal experience, we've received many calls of people asking to be on the waiting list, and very few actually are veterans.
That's what not I'm asking. I'm trying to ask you if you would track the number of veterans that ask you, whether that is 5, 10, or 100.
I do not
so
have
that
the
we
exact number.
so that we have the statistic. I need to have the statistic. I cannot just have, you saying that we don't have a lot. I need to know the numbers, so I can determine whether that number that we need to do something about it.
Councilman, if I could just chime in, it sounds like maybe if we can, as we're going through the next 6 months, 12 months, it sounds like you're asking us, when we do get a request from a veteran for possible Section 8s, could we log that, record that, and try to keep track of that, so that maybe in 6 months we can report back to you and say, even if it's a small number, we've had 5 veterans that have asked us, and and then we can make some decisions there about whether we want to make other certificates available to people.
Right. Yes, that's what I'm asking. But I also would like us to after we refer them to the VA, maybe in a few months we follow up with the VA to see if those veterans have been helped or not. But that's something that I ask. If it's not too much burden for our administrative staff, then at least that's what we should do.
It sounds like we can certainly, let us convene with the staff, and we can report back to you in particular and to the council members just about that. Danny, I don't know if you know the relationship we have with the VA and how difficult it would be if, for example, over the next 3 months you had 3 veterans, and if we called the VA, could they even share information with you according to HIPAA or other laws that there might be? I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah, I don't know the answer either, because there's confidential information, but I certainly can try.
Okay.
Once we refer, we certainly can try to follow up.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
But any question?
In the meantime, we'll kind of do a little tracking sort of informally over the next few months, and then report back to you about kind of what we're learning.
Sure. So it was initially opened in 2008, correct? Is that the time frame when we opened this?
I'm sorry, 2010?
2010.
Applications, yes.
Okay, and we were able to help approximate 3,000, and we have about 14,000 still requesting assistance 19 years later, or 9 years later.
Right.
That number seems kind of high to me. As far as is there anything staff is doing to follow up on these requests, or are they just sitting there for 9 years? are we determining if they still need assistance? Do they still live in the city? Have they moved? I mean, is there any follow-up being done on these requests, or is it just sitting there in a stack for 9 years? Excuse me.
Well, we have a waiting list, which started with 17,000. And so as we go, as a voucher becomes available, then we will contact applicants on the waiting list.
But is there any effort going on to contact this list of 14,000 people to see if they still want it, if they're still, if they're still living in the city, if they still, if they passed on? I mean, is there anything so we can get that number down?
We can get the number down. According to HUD also suggests that what some housing authority does purging, where they send out letters to applicants to see if they're still interested. HUD also suggests, though, that is, if the waiting list is too large, for example, 14 to 17,000, the cost of purging altogether, including staff time and stamps and all that, may not be worth it. So they're suggesting that we might purge as we go, meaning if I have 50 vouchers available, I might contact 100 or 200 people on the waiting list just to see where they're at, so we purge them as we go. Many of them, after 9 years, unfortunately, are no longer there, or no longer interested, or for
Right.
whatever reason, are no longer there. But it's more practical for us, because of the costs-wise, to purge as we go, instead of doing all at once.
So that 14,000 number we know is artificially high.
Right.
Okay, and do you know approximately how high? I mean, how many, when an opening does come open, how many people do you have to contact before you find somebody that can still take that opening?
It depends on when we contact them. For example, in 2010, right away, when we contact them, the response rate may be 90% of the letters that we
Well,
send
I'm
out.
talking now, in the last.
Right now, the response will be about 40%. So 40%, so if I send out 100 letters, more than likely I'll get back 40 replies.
Any other question? Well, I don't know if it will be helpful for some of the new council member to understand that the reason we have such a long backlogs is because a lot of the people in the program just stay there for a long time. Once they get in the program, they will likely to stay there almost forever if their condition doesn't change. So the number of people that being opened up is very small, and that's why the so many people in the backlog doesn't get in, and
Well, I think the reason I'm asking is, the reason for us not reopening this up for the new veterans, for example, is because of that 14,000 number is so high. But it appears to me that maybe it's not really 14, it's probably more in the area of 8. And, but even at that number, it's still too much to, I mean, it would still take years to.
And with my estimation of 15 years or more, I took that in consideration, the fact that most people, half of them would not respond, so.
Right. Thank you.
the reason that I bring this up from the previous meeting is that the original intent of the program always have to be given very high priority to the veterans. They almost get to the top of the list, regardless of whoever before them apply before them. But because we opened the enrollment in 2010, there's a lot of veterans that are in the Iraq and the Afghanistan war that get out recently, and they truly need help. But because they get out of the service, after 2010, they did not have an opportunity to apply for this program, and so there's no way for them to get into the high list that they have criteria have mandated. And that's why I was hoping that if the number is small, like 3 or 5 or 10, if the number is a few hundred, I would be worried about opening it up. But if the number is 3 or 5 or 10, then I think, depending on the situation, I think we should allow them. We're talking about the veteran who's sacrificed a lot for our country. They may have died in the battle. So now they get out of the services and they need help. If the number is small, especially when you mention that the number is small, That is why I think we should open it up. And that's why I want you to keep track of how many calls you have. If you tell me in the next 6 months that there are hundreds of them, then I might be worried about those 14,000 that is still in the backlog. But if you're telling me that there's only 3 or 4 or 5, I think we should take care of them.
We need to agendize that for direction, or can we just give a staff direction on that?
To the mayor and the council members, I think we have direction to track and do that work. So I'm comfortable with that direction if that's the wishes of council.
I think tonight we just vote to receive and file this report.
Okay.
We already have the motion and second, so let's go for the vote. Do we have the vote?
We're missing one. Motion received, 8 yes votes to receive and file the report.
Okay, so I would like to adjourn the meeting to the next Housing Authority meeting on August 27 and return the control back to the council meetings.
Thank you. We will reconvene. The city council meeting takes us to 1A, which is a community spotlight in recognition of the Garden Grove Strawberry Festival Association for organizing the 2019 Garden Grove Strawberry Festival.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Tonight, the Garden Grove City Council is proud to recognize a devoted group of individuals who have played significant roles in continuing the Garden Grove Strawberry Festival's reputation as a signature event in our community. Would President Don Miller from the Garden Grove Strawberry Festival Association please come forward? You can just stand up here in the front. And also, will all of the rest of the association members joining us tonight please stand and be recognized? So if all of you with your red shirts, please stand. And then all of you can sit down, and we'll leave Dawn up here. The Garden Grove Strawberry Festival Association is a nonprofit organization dedicated to raising funds for organizations that provide services for children, youth, and seniors. For the past 61 years, community leaders have volunteered hundreds of hours planning and coordinating the Garden Grove Strawberry Festival to give back to the community. The 4-day event brings out the best of Garden Grove's community spirit. This year's theme was Celebrating Family Together, and an estimated 300,000 people attended this year's festival, with many nonprofit groups benefiting from the sale of food and game booths. The Garden Grove Strawberry Festival also held their annual Special Kids Day when the festival was open a day early to 2,000 kids with special needs for free entertainment, food, rides, and stuffed animals. The nonprofit Garden Grove Strawberry Festival, I'm tongue-tied. The nonprofit Garden Grove Strawberry Festival Association has raised over $7 million for local charities since its formation in 1958. This year, the association pledges to donate about $100,000 to the Garden Grove community. And at this time, the mayor and city council would like to present the Garden Grove Strawberry Festival Association with a gift of appreciation for their tireless efforts in organizing the 2019 Garden Grove Strawberry Festival. Congratulations to all of you.
Do you want to do, should we do some pictures?
Yeah. Get a picture.
Here, all y'all want to come on up for some pictures? All right. Right around. So many.
Amen. It's called America.
We're in a
Oh, yeah.
Don't be careful there.
Oh, yeah, huh? Massive tippy toe.
Wow, you're even taller than us. I know, right? Yeah. We don't recognize you too high.
Follow the lie.
I just gotta keep pushing it. I got it. Thank you.
Sure, yeah, absolutely.
Dawn, would you like to say a few words?
Yes, I would. So, I wanted to thank all of you for coming out for the festival. It looked like everybody had a really good time. And also to just thank you for the collaboration between the Strawberry Festival organization and the city. It would be absolutely impossible to put on an event like this, of this magnitude, for 300,000 people without the support of the city, without the city staff that work so closely with us, and especially without the collaboration of the police department. They work so hard to keep our visitors and citizens safe, not only that weekend, but all year round. And we definitely appreciate everything they do at the festival and all the time. So thank you very much for this recognition, but it really is, we're family. So I hope everybody had a good time at the festival. We're happy to be able to give out the money, and we hope everybody will come and visit us next year as well, weather permitting. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Okay, and next, I'm going to jump over to Mark Ladney, who's going to do a presentation.
Yeah.
Would you want to say anything?
Yeah, just a quick,
Go ahead, I'm sorry. Come on, guys, wait up. It's tongue-tied all of a sudden. It's a different topic.
Different topic, yeah.
So, Mr. Mayor, just by introduction, council members will remember at our last council meeting, we had the police chief and the fire chief come up and give us a little information about our enforcement efforts related to fireworks and the 4th of July. So I thought it would be good also. I'd like to ask Mark Ladney, our animal services manager, to come forward. And he wants to give us and the community a few little tips about fireworks going off and the 4th of July and animal care and our pets.
Mr. Stiles, thank you very much. Mayor, council members, thank you very much for having me here tonight. Animal control, since we started the program in 2017, has been a very integral part of the city, and that also goes along with 4th of July. On 4th of July, we normally have an animal control officer that's in the city from about 1 o'clock in the afternoon until 11:30 at night to respond to any animal-related emergencies that occur during that time frame. And we're continuing to do so again this year. Typically, we do see an increase in call volume. Starts about 3 to 4 days prior to the actual holiday, and that lasts for about 3 to 4 days after the holiday is completed. The highest volume of calls during that time frame is for loose dogs. So for animal control, we do have our graphic. We are working with the Office of Community Relations once again to promote these tips and tricks for dog owners and animal owners for the 4th of July. So we'll just go over those really quickly. The biggest number one item is make sure that your dog has some form of identification on it. Make sure it has a city dog license tag. If it doesn't have a city dog license tag, you can contact us and we'll make arrangements for those, but it needs to have some type of identification. Animals that have identification on them have a much higher success rate of being reunited with their owners than animals with no identification. Also, make sure that your pet is microchipped. in that the microchip information is up to date. There's a lot of unregistered microchips out there. Just because your animal has a microchip doesn't mean that you're going to get it back. You need to make sure that it is registered with a microchip company. If you don't know who the microchip company is or what the microchip number is, you can contact your local vet and they will be able to scan the animal to get the microchip information to provide it to you. Third item, fencing. Fencing and walls. Make sure that fences and gates are thoroughly locked and secured. There's a lot of animals that get spooked by the fireworks at this time of year. So they do tend to knock down fences, they do jump over walls, they do go through unsecured gates. So the biggest thing is you want to make sure that if you're keeping your animal in the backyard, you want to make sure that the animal cannot get out of the backyard and then will go loose throughout the neighborhood. The next one that goes along with the fencing is items that are next to your walls. Make sure that the animal cannot use any items that are next to the wall as a ladder to get out of the yard. Believe it or not, they will use it as a stepping stool and they will use that to jump, and that's how they get out of the yard a lot of the time. So just want to make sure that, you know, if you are leaving your animal in the backyard during the 4th of July and during that time frame, that you're lessening the chance that the animal can escape your yard by making sure that everything is secured and clean. Finally, two last items. If you're going to be home at the 4th of July and you know that your dog does not react well to fireworks, instead of leaving your dog outside, bring your dog inside. Leave them in a confined space inside your house, or consider taking the animal to a boarding facility where it's going to lessen the chances of the dog being able to escape off the property and going loose in the city. Finally, once again, if you know that your dog does have issues with fireworks, we recommend that you go to your vet to talk with the vet to possibly get some tranquilizing medicine for the vet to help calm them down. So that way they're not as scared with the fireworks as they normally would be. We hope that with getting these tips and tricks out to the community, we're going to be having more dogs stay at home, or at least be reunited back to their homes during 4th of July. So Council, Mr. Mayor, thank you guys very much.
Thank you very much. Any questions or comments? No? Okay. Good. All right, and with that, we will move on to oral communications. Do have a number of cards, starting with Leland Sisk. Leland, I got 2 cards from you, but both would come under oral communication, so you only get one.
One of them was marked 3A.
Right, which is not a public hearing item, so now would be your chance to speak at one time on both items.
Right. Mr. Mayor, council members, and city staff, very quickly on 3A, I did send in a written statement that I want added to the public record. I'm very much against that 3A. I'm going to say it one more time. They are not registered on the Attorney General's website. Therefore, they cannot participate in charitable events. Okay, with that, now I'm going to go to what I really want to talk about. And I have one goal tonight. My goal is to either irritate or shame someone into taking some sort of action. And so, if someone gets upset, that's just too bad. I have an email here that I sent to a member of the Garden Grove staff on March 9th, 2007. I don't throw email away. This email concerns a code violation in my neighborhood. It concerns a tow truck that was parking on Lawara and also in the alley off of Waverly, just north of Chapman. Tow truck is there day and night, and it's illegal. You can't park in the alleys. I think that's 1056 150. I'm not sure about that one. But you can't have commercial vehicles, especially things like tow trucks, parked in the residential neighborhood. You can't. I got in touch with code enforcement. They said we're all over it. Apparently not. Mr. Stiles, I brought an email to your office less than 2 months ago and dropped it off with photographs, with copies of these emails, with documentation. I got no reply. Apparently the city is not making any impression on this driver at all, even though I've been told over the years that, okay, he's on the run now, we've sent letters, we're gonna fine him, he's not impressed. Same tow truck, and I have photographs, was back this Saturday on Lawara with a vehicle on the back of the truck. It was there at 7 o'clock in the morning. It was there. It was not on Lawara when I came back by. It parks by the church. You know where I'm talking about. By 2 o'clock in the afternoon, they had moved it back in the alley, taken the pickup truck off the back of the tow truck, had the hood up, and they were working on it. And it stayed there until Sunday afternoon, and now I don't know where it's at now. But apparently, the city of Garden Grove has not impressed this person, not even a little bit, because they're still back. So I'm wondering, like I've mentioned this council before, can I go rob a bank and just, I don't know, get a free pass or something? Because apparently the city, nobody in the council, the city, he's not impressed. He keeps doing it. And I'm just wondering what it takes to have a fellow citizen come into compliance with the law. It's very simple. You can't do it, but they still are. So, anybody wants copies of the emails? I've got them from since 2007. Sometimes these were conversations, and I have no records of that. But it's probably been 3 separate code enforcement officers told me, yeah, we got this, maybe not so much. So, I hope somebody can do something, because this tow truck operator's not impressed. Thank you very kindly.
Are you going to address the other item? Because this would be your chance to address both.
Well, on 3A?
Yeah.
Well, that's what
Because
I
it's
meant.
not a public hearing, so you're not going to get called back
Yeah,
up at that
yeah.
time.
Well, that's what I meant on 3A about the
Gotcha. I'm
waiver
sorry.
of the fees.
Sorry, okay.
That they're not registered with the Office of the Attorney General.
Got it,
I don't
okay.
care if they have a 501c3, it makes no difference to the Attorney General. You still have to be registered with the Attorney General, and I can prove it. Thank you.
Thank you. Tom Raber.
I'm here for 3 different items. One of them, first one would be the citizens' request. So, love Garden Grove's website. You actually can go on there and put a request on a violation, either traffic or whatever the case there is. But there's a problem with code enforcement. There is none. So if you go ahead and click urgent, which I was told to, you go to a page that you click on code enforcement, and it goes back to the same menu selection. I have talked to Anand 2 weeks ago, and I talked to him today. He needs direction on code enforcement and also add another line item for fire department. I'll explain to you why by the fire department. 2 weeks ago, I wanted to see what a $600,000 townhome cost. So I walked into the HOA right down the street. The gate was open. I walked in, looked at the townhome, and went back to go back home, and the gate was locked. I was trapped. I had 2 choices. I could call the Garden Grove Police Department or walk back to the realtor so he can use a little remote control to open up the car gate. I chose the second one. I put a citizen's request, nothing under code. So I put down traffic. And I got the email on Monday stating that the city of Garden Grove is not responsible for any private property. So Tom Raber drives over on Tuesday to City Hall, and they told me that they're not responsible for HOAs. So Tom Raber goes over to the fire department, because I don't care. I went ahead and had an awesome conversation with the acting fire chief, McGowan, and Fire Marshal Whitaker. Awesome. Went home, sent them an email with photos and everything else, and believe it or not, Fire Marshal Whitaker emailed me real fast, saying that they're going to take care of it. And David Dent was acknowledged on that email. So thanks to the fire department for acting on that situation. I really don't want to see somebody trapped in a fire and cannot get out. Second thing is, that brand new house that was built next to me, there's a new owner. Nice people, except for they don't know the codes. And they tore out the 6'3" of grass next to my property, and they're planning to put concrete in there. So therefore, the code is 50% has to be softscape, which means lawn or plants or whatever the case may be. They're not going to do that. So I went online and under the citizen's request, and I put down dry lawn, because that's the only thing that came up. Again, there should be a code enforcement. So no replies. So I drove down to City Hall today. Just so you know, I had a suit on. I looked pretty swanky. Gonna ask area right here. I went to all 3 floors. Everybody knew I had a suit on today. So After I talked to code enforcement, they took a piece of paper and wrote all the information on. That information should be digital, so that when it is corrected, even though I live next door, that there's an email response that has been taken care of, or whatever the case may be. So Anon needs to talk to both of those departments. I'd like to thank the council for your actions last council meeting, that the city of Garden Grove will only have government flags in City Hall. I know that was a tough decision, but thank you. And due to that, Kim Nguyen wanted the lights on the clock. You know what? That's a good idea. You know, real good idea. But you know what? There's other activities in June. You got Father's Day. Everybody here has a father, and 4 of you could be fathers. So what I'm suggesting is that no organization, nonprofit, or community has a whole month of their activity. It should be only a week at the most. So I'm suggesting a Mother's Day, Father's Day, 4th of July is coming up. I know we don't have the lights yet, but we should go ahead and make the term limited to 1 week. And about the Garden Grove Police Department. April 10th of last year, $668,000 was given to the police for body cams. So I felt safe in the city of Garden Grove. I got a ticket in Garden Grove this year. On February 12th, you guys reapproved $1.4 million for body cams because the original ones from April 10th of the year before were faulty. I went to the Garden Grove Police Department and asked, on the original body cams, when did they receive them, when did they activate them, and when were they pulled? Now, I think everybody out there in the city of Garden Grove should know that there's a lawsuit, that information was not given to me. What's so hard about that little bit of information? I was told that the current body cams were activated on Saturday, June 15th of this year. So we can feel safe again. And it's kind of nice right now, I don't hear no crickets. No crickets tonight. Mayor Steve Jones, I know you have a lot of responsibility, but one of them should be having the government office or meeting itself quiet. It's not to be out there clicking your fingers like a bunch of little crickets. And lastly, just for public record, I had 2 friends that died this month. Tony Wood, he passed away on June 2nd of this year. He was 62 years old, died in an airplane coming from Canada. Understand. He was part of the George Barris Customs, the one that did the Batmobiles and so forth. Another one was Nicole McGuire of the McGuire Wax Company. She was only 49. They both died of a heart attack. Thank you.
Nick Dibbs and Cheryl Seymour.
Give me a moment, please. Mayor Jones, members of the council, my name is Nicholas Dibbs. I'm a honors graduate from Pacifica High School. Lived here in Garden Grove a number of years. I'm a teacher. Since credentialed science teacher, I taught in the Garden Grove Unified School District in a variety of positions where I filled in for teachers who were absent for over 16 years. I also taught in various capacities in Long Beach Unified and a couple other districts. I'm here to follow up on something important that I raised at your council meetings back on May 14th, May 28th, and at the last council meeting earlier this month. And that is the alarming and increasing rate of teen suicides. Suicide is now the second leading cause of death of young people ages 10 to 24. And the Hope Squad is a national suicide intervention program that gives students the tools to recognize those in need and get them help. I want to, before I play something, tape regarding that, I want to mention a couple of things. Number one, for the last 3 years, I'm one of the sponsors of the Garden Grove College Graduates Reception. I've also been an advocate to Chris Beard and also to George Bredegum and all of you on the council of establishing Youth and Government Day, and also, which we finally reinstated after a long hiatus last year, but this year it's not being done, so let's bring back Youth and Government Day. Huntington Beach, Anaheim, and many cities have Youth and Government Day, but more importantly, as George knows, we used to have a youth commission, and we no longer have that in this city. Now, what I'm proposing, based on the increase in youth suicides, as well as the need to warn parents to monitor their children's social media and screen time. There's a scientific correlation between the amount of screen time that young people spend on their phones, smartphones, and their socialization skills. The more time they spend on the screen, the less time they're spending interacting with people and developing soft skills and socialization skills. And it turns out that scientific studies, including from the World Health Organization and other entities, are discovering that the screen time in young people is affecting their development of their brain. So these are important issues, and so what I've advocated in the last couple of meetings is that the council establish a youth advisory committee modeled sort of as the city of Long Beach has done. And the city of Long Beach, they call it a commission on youth and children, and that would include people such as myself, educators, and high school and college students that would work collaboratively to advise you, the council, as to some things that this city can do to implement programs to get kids off of their screens and into more productive activities. I'm going to play, and I also brought to your attention back on May 20th, the USA Today article on the front page, Help Elude Suicidal Teens. I brought that up before, but on the same day that this article came out, NBC Nightly News in New York did this 2-minute segment about teen suicides, which I'll play.
In high schools across the country, a crisis. Who here knows somebody personally who's contemplated suicide? Wow. Every single one of you. Suicide now the second leading cause of death between the ages of 10 and 18. For Utah Principal Dr. Greg Hudnall, it's more than statistics after he was called to identify the body of one of his 14-year-old students.
I literally threw up and sobbed. I made a vow that I would do everything that I could to help prevent suicide.
He founded Hope Squad, a way to help kids change how they talk about mental illness.
Those young people feel like they're the only one, that they're embarrassed, they're struggling.
The program gives students the tools to recognize those in need and get them help.
I don't think that most people understand that people do say that they're going to commit suicide most of the time before they do.
There are now more than 500 squads across 18 states and Canada. Another 100 will begin next year.
We're having this connection now, we're having this relationship now, and I care about you.
Students are chosen by their peers and specially trained, meeting regularly. This is Hope Squad's first year in Mason, Ohio, and the first year without a suicide since Abby Gadio started at the school 4 years ago.
Do you think Hope Squad has
Thanks, Nick.
saved lives this year? For sure.
Okay, well,
We gotta
we're
wrap
going to
that.
Cheryl's time, then we'll go into her 5 minutes.
It doesn't actually work that way, in fairness to all the other people that want to address the council.
Okay, so when two
Yeah.
come up, we can't have 5 minutes each?
She can if she'd like, but
Okay,
you can't
so-
have 5 minutes yourself. Thanks.
Okay, I understand. So,
Okay, my name is, let me get over here. My name is Cheryl Seymour. My husband was the chief editor of Orange County News. And I want to say hello, Mayor Jones and staff member and council people. The reason I'm here is I'm trying to follow up what Mr. Diggs presented, and it's about the teen suicide, which is really high right now. Mr. Diggs presented the introduction of Thomas. Okay, please listen to the introduction about Thomas Kirsten's books that he presented, and how to and how to reconnect digitally distracted kids. Okay, the title is Thomas Kirsten's Disconnected, and how to reconnect our digital distracted kids.
From 2002 until today, I've been a member of the Intervention and Referral Services Committee, INRS, at a local high school where I work as a counselor. The role of the committee is to provide academic accommodations to students with temporary or permanent disabilities, as long as there is evidence that the disability is affecting the student's learning. Some common disabilities my committee has reviewed over the years include concussions, diabetes, Crohn's disease, and specific learning issues. During the 2009 school year, the types of disabilities referred to my committee started to change. We began receiving countless referrals for teenage students diagnosed with attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. Attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, also known as ADHD, is a neurological condition that causes a combination of the following symptoms: inattention, disorganization and lack of focus, and sometimes impulsivity and hyperactivity. These symptoms are very noticeable by age 5, and the average age of diagnosis is 8 years old. Strangely, my committee was receiving dozens of referrals for 14 and 15-year-olds newly diagnosed with the disorder. As a school counselor by day and private practice therapist by night, I have more than 20 years of experience working with ADHD children and their families. And this influx of attention deficit teenagers wasn't making sense to me. Was it possible that so many parents and teachers had overlooked the symptoms when these kids were in elementary or middle school? Could this many children possibly have slipped through the cracks, I wondered? Something wasn't adding up. I started to aggressively research this ADHD phenomenon and even consulted with neighboring school districts. My colleagues saw precisely what I was seeing: an inordinate number of teenagers being diagnosed with ADHD. My research led me to the work of Dr. Gary Small, professor of psychiatry and director of the UCLA Longevity Center at the Semel Institute for Neuroscience and Human Behavior. Dr. Small is one of the world's top innovators in science and technology. In 2007, Small began researching technology's impact on the brain and discovered that when research subjects spent as little as an hour a day online, the activity patterns in their brains changed dramatically. According to Small, the human brain is malleable, always changing in response to its environment. Dr. Small explains that the brain is very sensitive. Every stimulation the brain receives causes a complex cascade of neurochemical, electrical.
Okay, Mayor, thank you. We're, just please initiate a youth advisory committee so we can work together and help reduce suicides here in the city and also have better youth programs. Thank you.
Thank you. Kim Tran.
And thank you very much.
Good evening, mayors and then council members and staff. My name is An Dao An Trung. I am the pharmacist, and then my colleague Kim Chan will be here tonight.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kim. I'm a pharmacist. We're here tonight just to speak to you, just to bring the attention of what we're facing as pharmacists practicing in Garden Grove. And then I'm actually not in Garden Grove, but I'm in Westminster. But there's a lot of us here who are practicing in Garden Grove who's facing some issues, and we want to share that with you tonight.
Okay. So I say my name is An Dao An Trung. I am the pharmacist and pharmacy owner of Maria Pharmacy in the city of Garden Grove. I've been practicing pharmacy since 2003 and become the pharmacy owner and serving the patient in city of Garden Grove in 2015. The majority of our pharmacy patients are Vietnamese and Hispanic patients. There is some terminology, and I would like to share with you. There's PPM is a pharmacy benefit management, the middleman that help us get contract with the insurance. DIR fee is a direct, indirect remuneration fee, which is retroactively charged back quarterly after the prescription was filled. All of those terms are very new to me as a pharmacist. My top priority is to dispense the medication and serve the patient. Monitor and counsel the patient and his medication need. For many years, pharmacists have been ranked the most trusted healthcare and easy access healthcare profession to our patient. I would think that we would be able to receive a fair compensation. During the past couple of years, pharmacy dispensing fees have been dropped tremendously. Some of the medication that we dispense for life saving on a daily basis have been reduced to a minimal fee of 45-50 cents for hypertension medication, blood pressure medication. DIR fee is something that's very puzzling to us, very surprisingly. We don't know how that fee is calculated, and it's very unpredictable and impossible for any pharmacy owner or business owner keep the cash flow. For example, do you want to hand out? For a medication like Januvia, everyone would know that for diabetic medication, where at the point of sale, we got reimbursement. We made a benefit of 40 cents. But a quarter later, a couple months later, the PPM or middleman take it back $82. So we made a loss on the medication. Uloric is another medication for gout. So at the dispensing fee, at the point of sale, we made some money. We made 40 cents, 50 cents. But a quarter later, after the fee kicked in, we made a loss of $20. So basically, it's very puzzle and complex process. It's very hard for us to sustain the business financially to serve the public. Our pharmacist role get expanded over the year with the vaccination, smoking cessation, travel medication, detoxification. We play a vital role with the local physician to collaborate of care to our patient. No one would understand that. This is how pharmacy business would operate. Practicing pharmacy is my words, my life. I like to help to serve the patient. So when something like this issue come up in the future, there's some bill regulation. We would ask your help to channel the problem up to state, to the federal, and then raise a public awareness. Thank you.
Thank you.
I got very emotional tonight, but I did talk.
I don't know if you understand all that terminology. It's very puzzling for a lot of us here in the who are pharmacists in the back of this room, who are here to represent our profession and the struggles that we're going through. I've been a pharmacist for many years. I'm a new business owner, and this is very shocking for me. A lot of us are very new, experiencing this, going into business and making a loss. So we're just trying to bring awareness to the issue If you have a lot of pharmacy owners in your area that you're aware of, I know you're nodding your head, maybe you know somebody personally that owns a pharmacy and who's servicing your parents or your friends, reach out to us and help us, because we're in need of a bigger voice. We're just very small business owners who are very new, and we might be out of business soon if this change doesn't happen. We have an advocacy day tomorrow in Sacramento. We have a lot of pharmacists up there who's going to be speaking on our behalf, but we wanted to bring this to a city level so that we can all be aware of the issues that we're facing. Thank you.
Thank you. Joyce Bash. Did I say that correctly, ma'am?
I'm sorry?
Did I say that correctly?
Perfectly.
Good. Okay.
Perfectly, thank you. Good evening, Honorable Mayor, esteemed City Council people, and hardworking staff. I'm Joyce Bash. My reason here tonight is an issue that you've heard before, and I need to present it to lead up to the two concerns that I have. The issue is I fell in a small shopping center here in Garden Grove. I was taken to an emergency room. From that, I received a bill from CARE ambulance for $200, which was, I understood. And 10 days, it was almost a month after the incident, I received a bill from the city of Garden Grove for $387.35, I guess for the call for ambulance assistance. That's not my complaint. I understand that's come up several times and it continues to come up, so it's a shame you haven't dealt with that. But the reason that I'm here is that I sent a letter to the city and I thought I'm entitled to know what I'm being charged for. And in this, the letter that I sent, by the way, I also sent it to the Attorney General of California because I think it's that serious. And I asked for an accounting of the vehicle that came, the time it came, where it came, where it took me, when it took me there, what was involved, the name of the people who were with me, and I got no written response for them. A while after, I got a call from City Hall, and when I spoke with the person there, I was told that I needed to pay the bill, and I asked what would happen if I didn't, and I was told that it would be sent to a collection agency. And I said, and what would happen there? And they said, it will ruin your credit. So I'm here to say that the city should have responded to me, to my letter, and I also feel that I was threatened if I didn't pay the bill. So thank you for listening to me. And I also want to commend you on the Strawberry Festival. I've gone for years, and it's not only such a wonderful community, county event, a district event, but the results and how the organizations that it helps are quite worthwhile. So thank you for listening to me.
Thank you.
I have papers if anyone would like to have them of a copy of the letter.
You're welcome to hand them to the city clerk if you like. Maureen Blackman.
Good evening, everyone. I wanted to say tonight that for the past 2.5 years, Council Member and Mayor Pro Tem Klopfenstein and the Garden Grove Neighborhood Association have been working with Garden Grove Animal Care, so which led us to when the coyotes started getting a little wild in February, the Garden Grove Neighborhood Association took the lead, and we had a what we call our Meet on Main. We had a very informative panel. First, I'd like to compliment Mark Ladney with the Garden Grove with the Garden Grove Animal Care. He stood toe-to-toe with Amelia Vieira, who's an environmental scientist from the Garden Grove Department of Fish and Wildlife, David Dodge, who was in outreach and education, and Larry Stevens, who's a local Garden Grove guy and a game warden for many, many years with the department. We're really lucky to have Mark on board with this. All the experts educated us on coyote wildlife, human behaviors, facts versus fiction, and what options are available to basically wage a legal war on coyotes. It's not easy. They discuss trapping, relocating, and more. One thing we didn't get an answer for is why are there so many coyotes today? At the end of the day, we still have coyotes basically terrorizing our city. They're hopping fences in the backyard and snatching pets, and folks are living with the constant fear that a child will be next. Frustration is growing, and the community is confused. Garden Grove's not alone in this problem, but I think it's time to bring in the experts again and perhaps consider a more aggressive option, or perhaps just education as to find out why there's so many. We'd be happy to partner with the city. I think it's time to take a lead. Thank you.
That is the last of the cards I have, so we will close oral communications. We'll go on to written communications. We do have one item 3A.
Mr. Mayor, before we go into items 3A, I would like to recuse myself because I'm also part of the organizing day for the Mid-June Autumn Festival. Thank you.
Item 3A is a consideration of a request to waive fees for the use of Atlantis Play Center for the Mid-Autumn Children's Festival hosted by the South Vietnamese Marines Veteran Charities Association on Saturday, September 7th, 2019. And Mr. Montanchez is here to give the report.
Thank you, Ms. Benoit. Good evening, Mayor and members of City Council. Tonight, I'm transmitting a letter from the South Vietnamese Marines Charities Association requesting approval to waive the local nonprofit group exclusive use fee at the Atlantis Play Center for the annual Mid-Autumn Children's Festival on September the 7th, 2019. The South Vietnamese Marines Charities Association is a Garden Grove-based tax-exempt nonprofit and is serving as the administrator for the Coordinating Committee of Vietnamese American Youth, which aims to promote friendship, understanding, and community service among children. The Mid-Autumn Children's Festival is a cultural event and will be free to children and families with an expected number of 500 to 800 attendees. The activities will include arts and crafts, cultural performances, line dances, games, drawing contests, and a free lantern for children. The cost of the co-sponsorship for the 2019 Mid-Autumn Children's Festival for the exclusive use of the Atlantis Play Center by a local nonprofit group is $525 for an 8-hour time slot, which includes the cost of staffing the event. Additionally, the South Vietnamese Marines Charities Association has again committed to reimburse the city 5% of the city's cost. As a result, the overall waived fee would be $498.75. This concludes my report, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any questions?
Yes. I just want to the city attorney to clarify a couple of things for us before I make my comment. First of all, I believe Council Member Tu Ha it's not mandate for her to recuse herself. Is that correct? Because two things. Her involvement with this project is completely volunteer. She does not have being paid for it. So there's no financial interest on her behalf that require her to recuse herself. Secondly, this event is a public event. It's completely free to everyone. So, so again, there is no financial, but I think she just want to voluntarily recuse herself because she choose to do so, and she's not mandated to do so. Is that correct?
That's correct. So the conflict of interest laws prohibit personal financial interests. So you have to have actually pecuniary interest before you are required by law to recuse yourself. On the other hand, when you're involved with an organization, perception sometimes can create negative connotations, and it's your choice whether you want to be at the dais when the public knows you're involved in the organization versus accuse yourself and take away any possible negative perceptions by the public.
Okay. Secondly, there have been some question and objection regarding the 501 or non-profit, I shouldn't say 501, non-profit status. And this issue came to us before with the Orange County Autism Project. Now, from what I understand, this organization, or at least one of the organizations that are a part or the main part of this event, have a 501c3. Now, the complaint that we heard is 501c3 is not the criteria for the city to use it as a measure, as a state measure for whether this is a nonprofit or not. And I thought we have went over this when we discussed the OC Autism, and we approve it because you have explained to us and to the public that from the city perspective, if an organization have 501c3 status, which I believe this group does, that's sufficient to be considered as a city nonprofit organization. Is that correct?
Yes, so 501c3 is a section of the IRS code, the Internal Revenue Code, Title 47 of the United States Codes, and it refers to federal charitable organization recognition. Because as you know, donations to nonprofits are tax deductible, and 501c3 basically says that they can accept donations that are deductible to the donors. Our code was adopted before the state rules requiring registration with the AG's office. And I'll give you an example of a provision of our code. As you know, our code requires that only nonprofits can obtain a permit to have a booth to sell fireworks in the city. And so the section of the code regarding fireworks stands says that only federally certified nonprofit tax-exempt organizations located within the city and primarily benefiting Garden Grove community are eligible to receive temporary fireworks stance permits. So that's what our code provides, and is similar for some of the other provisions of the code and regulations that we look at in terms of receiving benefits from the city. So when we get an application, we check two things. Number one, they're registered as a nonprofit corporation with the state of California. And number two, they have non-charitable organization status recognition with the IRS, which is the federal agency that regulates nonprofit registration and tax returns. And this particular organization, we checked for both, and they are in good standing with both the state of California, Secretary of State, and also the IRS. What I do want to say is that in 1998, the state adopted regulations requiring nonprofits that have public raffles to register with the AG's office, and gave the AG, the Attorney General, the authority to basically oversee these raffles to make sure that the money collected was going for the nonprofit purposes, so that these raffles don't become gambling enterprises for profit, basically, like Vegas casinos. So that was the initial reason for having that law. However, in 2004, they amended it to require all charitable organizations, whether they do raffles or not, to register with the AG's office. But our code hasn't been updated to require that as well. So for our purposes, we only looked at the federal recognition status. If you're a charitable organization, you still have to register with the state of California AG's office, but that is not part of our regulatory, what we look at. Now, if the council wants to, direct us to look at registration with the AG's office, we can do that as well. I can tell you that the registration with the AG's office basically is the same information that's provided to both the Secretary of State and the IRS. So if they already have the IRS and the Secretary of State registration, it's very easy to register with the AG's office. They just have to pay a fee. So it's just an additional fee that they pay to the AG's office in order to be listed on their registry.
You see, for most of the nonprofit association that I've been in working with, including my own few nonprofit association, we only known to apply with the Secretary of State. We never knew that we have to also register with the Attorney General. So so I think that would be something that we a subject for a different day to look at whether we should or should not require that with our city. With that, I think this is good that they agree with the 5%. That they have to incur themselves, and we've been applying that requirement across the board to anyone who asks the city for help. That is, we want them to show a good faith that they absorb that 5%. This group comply to that, and I don't see any other reason that we should treat them differently than other requests, like from OC Autism, from the Boy Scout Push Kirby, which we also require them to contribute 5%. And so I don't think.
Is that a motion?
Well,
I would like to make a motion.
I've got a comment first, if you don't mind.
Sure.
I'll second for discussion.
Roger that. So basically, I totally think this is a great event, and I think probably wonderful community festivity for the families. But again, we're waiving the $498. We're not forcing them to pay the $498.
That's correct, yeah.
Okay. See, the difference is with the Boy Scouts, we force them to pay the $500. And this group just recently got a huge influence of money from the Garden Grove Community Foundation. They are more than able to cover a $500 fee, whereas the Boy Scouts make $0, and we require them to pay $500. So if we're going to be fair, we wouldn't waive this. I just want to keep that in mind. With that being said, I'm not opposed to this at all, but we should be consistent if we're going to be consistent.
I think I understand what you meant, right? So why do we make the Boy Scout pay $500 and we don't make them pay $500? But I think the original intent back then was the cost for the city is a few $1,000s, and so we are and they are asking to waive that, and so we ask them to pay 5% of it, and 5% of whatever that 5%.
We're waiving their 5%. That's what we're effectively doing. So just being upfront.
Excuse me, Councilmember Bradigan, just to clarify that the Boy Scouts didn't pay $500 for the, there was a $500, I think, waiver for police support, and that's what was waived. Yeah, there wasn't actual, any fees. They paid the 5% on that.
On that.
Yeah, I don't remember how much they pay, but I think back then what we asked them is we asked them to pay 5% of whatever the cost that they're asking us to waive.
Well, and again, like I said, I am not opposed to this. Matter of fact, I'm very supportive of this, but in my mind, we were charging one group and excluding another group.
Right. I just want the Boy Scout and the public to know that we didn't ask them to pay $500. We asked the Boy Scout to contribute 5% of whatever the real cost is.
Yeah, he just clarified that.
Yeah.
Councilmember Kimway.
Thank you. So just before I make the comment that I wanted to make, clarification, that was just a misunderstanding. We did not force Boy Scouts to pay. We asked for 5% like we do every other organization that we waive the fee for. So we are consistent. So I just want to clarify that. And I want to make the comment, I believe we received an email that the South Vietnamese Marines Veterans Charities is actually registered with the AG, so they're in good standing.
Yes, so I did check with the AG's office today, and they are current in their registry, and they have been since this goes back to 2012.
I just want to make sure that we're addressing that because that was the issue that was complained about earlier. So they're registered in all capacities and they meet the requirement to be waived. And there was a second motion.
Mm-hmm. Thanks. We do have a motion and a second. Call to vote.
Motion received, 6 yes votes.
Thank you. That concludes written communications. I'm going to ask that we take a 5-minute break.
Good idea.
Okay.
over to the successor agency. Madam Clerk, would you like to call roll?
Member Bridegan?
Here.
Member O'Neill?
Here.
Member Tu-Ha Nguyen? Here. Member Klopfenstein? Here. Member Kim Nguyen?
Here.
Vice Chair Bowie?
Yeah.
And Chair Jones.
Here, we already did oral communication simultaneously with other bodies. Move on to consent items. We just have a receive and file the minutes. Do I have a motion?
So
Motion.
moved. Second.
Call the vote.
Motion received, 7 yes votes.
Okay, we do have one public hearing item, and it's a public hearing to adopt the resolution approving the biennial successor agency budget.
That's correct, and Ms. Song is here to give the report.
Okay. Good evening, Chairman and members of the agency. I'm happy to present the fiscal years 2019 to 21 biennial budget for the Garden Grove Successor Agency. A few highlights I'd like to bring to your attention for this upcoming biennial budget for the agency, including a reduced funding level for administrative costs of about $152,000 for each year from the state. This is due to the winding down of the successor agency activities. Several projects are coming to a completion, so the administrative cost funding for that has been reduced by the state. The recognized obligation payment schedule, ROPS for short, is approved annually by the State Department of Finance. Included in the 2019 to 20 budget is based on the approved ROPS schedule. As you can see, several major development that's still going on includes the Brookhurst Triangle, which is a residential development, and Site B2, that's a hotel development. This slide shows side by side 2 years of the budget that we're proposing. Both years are balanced. The distribution from the Redevelopment Agency Property Tax Trust Fund for year 1 shows $32 million, and year 2 it only shows about $15 million. There were a question asking about the reduction of the revenue estimates between year 1 and year 2. This is one of the major reasons. There are several projects that the funding was one time for year 1, including the Brookhurst Triangle. There will be $18.1 million for 1920 in the budget. However, with the completion of the project, year 2, we do not have the same amount. That's why you're seeing only $15 million. And similarly, on the uses, on the expenditure side, the expenditures also lower by similar amount for year 2. But again, the agency brings a balanced budget for both fiscal years. And this concludes my presentation for the biennial budget. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Patricia. Any questions or comments?
Mr. Chair. On that second slide, and I can't get it up here, I guess. Oh, there we go. In 1920, the operations and overhead, $395,000. But in 2021, with the lower revenue, the operations and overhead is actually higher at $581,000.
Yeah, and we'll be answering that question.
So for the operations and overhead for year 2, what we had to do there is just, right now it's the estimate for the labor costs. So what typically happens is around this time next year is they go to the DOF to have their new ROPS schedule approved. And once that's approved, they'll have a different budget, they'll have a different admin and overhead, and at that time we'll decide how much the general fund would have to subsidize, and we'll be taking that amount as part of the fiscal year 2021 budget amendment, which we'll do next year.
So that's a conservative estimate then?
Correct. That's just what we have for labor costs and overhead, as if nothing happened, as if we haven't gone to the DOF to have that adjusted.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Do I have a motion? Oh, yeah, we can do that. All right, we'll open the public hearing. I do not have any cards. Is there anyone wishing to speak on this particular item? Seeing none, we will close the public hearing. Council members?
Motion to approve. Second.
Call to vote.
Motion received, 7 yes votes.
Thank you. Any other matters from agency members? Seeing none, we will adjourn to sanitary district.
All right. Sanitary District. This time we'll open up the Sanitary District. Madam Clerk, if you can call the roll on that one.
Member Bowie?
Here.
Member Jones?
Here.
Member Klopfenstein?
Here.
Member Kim Nguyen?
Here.
Member Tu Au Nguyen?
Here.
Vice President Brightingham?
Here.
And President O'Neill.
Here. All right. Well, we already did oral communications with the other bodies. We have one consent item. Entertain a motion on that. For
So
the
moved.
minutes. I got a motion. Second. Please call for the vote. All right.
Motion received, 7 yes votes.
Sorry. Okay, this time we have a few items here. Sanitary District always has a meeting around this time of year. We have business we have to take care of, so we have 4 public hearings. These will be taken separately. We'll have to have a public hearing for each one. But we'll go ahead and go to 3A. This is to conduct a public hearing for a report detailing the fees to be collected on the tax roll for refuse collection and disposal services in Improvement District Number 1, and adopt a resolution authorizing the collection of the tax roll or refuse collection and disposal fees for Improvement District 1. And I believe staff will have a report on this. Take it away.
District Board President and Board members. Item 3A relates to the Sanitary District's Improvement District Number 1. This improvement district is made of those areas of the city that prior to becoming a subsidiary district of the city in 1997 were formerly in the Midway City Sanitary District. The Midway City Sanitary District collected sanitary service charges by placing them on the tax roll. In order to continue this system for the convenience of the customers and the waste collector, the Sanitary Board of Directors must each year conduct a public hearing, adopt an attached resolution approving the report and authorizing the collection on the tax roll of disposal and refuse collection fees in District Number 1. The service charge for the standard residential service in District Number 1 is $21.62 per month, or $259.44 per year. The total number of parcels that these fees apply to is 5,697, and the total amount to be collected is $1,493,336.64. A list of the charges has been prepared and filed with the Secretary, containing a description of each parcel of real property receiving services for the refuse collection and disposal services in Improvement District Number 1, and the proposed charges for each parcel. Staff recommends that the Sanitary District Board of Directors conduct a public hearing, adopt an attached resolution approving the report, and authorizing the collection on the tax roll of disposal and refuse collection fees in District Number 1 by 5 affirmative votes, and direct staff to file the necessary documentation with the county for the collection of the fees on the property tax bills. This concludes staff's report, and we are available for any questions.
Great. So for the public out there, basically, we have a west part of the city that has their tax, their trash bill basically put on their taxes instead of that bi-monthly bill or what we get. So that's what this is for. Any questions of staff from colleagues? Okay, go ahead.
Just one quick question. Is there an actual increase associated with this?
This year's disposal included a CPI adjustment of 3.15%.
Thank you.
Sure.
And this is a public hearing, so I'll go ahead and open this up to anybody who would like to comment on this particular item. Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. Entertain a motion. All right, I'm sorry, before we do that, I think I have to have the secretary actually report from the secretary regarding this item.
So President O'Neill and board members, as of the close of the public hearing, the city's clerk's office has received no protests regarding this assessment, so this is considered not a majority protest.
Okay, that's an official thing we have to do. So any other member discussion? Entertain a motion.
I move the motion.
Motion and second, please vote.
Motion received, 7 yes votes.
All right, thank you. And we'll go to 3B. This is conduct a public hearing for a report of delinquent accounts for the trash or refuse collection and disposal service bills. Adopt a resolution authorizing the imposition of liens on parcels with delinquent accounts. And staff will have a report on this also.
Item 3B asks that the Sanitary District Board adopt the attached resolution adopting the report and authorizing the imposition of liens for the collection of delinquent refuse collection and disposal fees on the property tax bills. Republic Services bills customers quarterly for refuse collection and solid waste disposal. If a billing remains unpaid for a period of 60 days or more, at the end of the fiscal year, the assessment process may be implemented. The last relevant billing was prepared and mailed in February of this year. All charges remain on that billing became delinquent May 1st, 2019. 60 days after the delinquency date, the delinquent amount plus an associated 10% penalty may be filed with the county auditor. Payments will be accepted through July 13th, and the remaining balance will be placed on the tax roll. The amount submitted and recorded by parcel would be collected at the same time and the same manner as regular county property taxes. The parcels also become subject to the same penalties and to the same procedure for foreclosure and sale as provided by ordinary county taxes. Prior to the fees becoming a lien against the property, the individual property owner is notified of the delinquent amount and the date and the time of the public hearing. To ensure further that all parties are aware of the potential lien, a notice announcing this hearing date was published in the Orange County News, May 31st and June 7th of this year. It is recommended that the Board of Directors conduct a public hearing, adopt the attached resolution authorizing the imposition of liens for the collection of delinquent refuse collection and disposal fees by 5 affirmative votes, and direct staff to file the necessary documentation with the county for the collection of the delinquent fees on the property tax bills. This concludes staff's report, and we are available for any questions.
All right, thank you very much. So basically, if you don't pay your trash bill, eventually there will be a lien to the county on your taxes. Now, I do have a question that I was concerned about. With the recent problem we had with billing for some of the trash services, I want to make sure that none of the residents are going to get a possible lien because of a billing situation where people were getting double billed. Can you give us any information on that? Is that going to be an issue? Have you seen any
None
increase?
that I am aware of. There were 2 people tonight that brought a question about a bill, but it was not a double billing, and I'm going to work that out with Republic Services tomorrow.
Okay.
I took their information down, so I'll contact them.
Okay, any other questions?
Yes, I have one question that perhaps you can clarify for us. If the landlord rent out, let's say, a residential home to tenants, and the tenant is the one who opened the services with Republics, and they are in delinquent, the landlord or the owner, probably owner, have nothing to do with that because he or she was not, on the contract with Republic. Is he or she liable for the collection, or what happening here? Why
Yes.
why
Yes,
are we?
he's liable because the services are provided to the property, and our code provides for both water, sewer, trash. Property owners are liable.
Okay, so even though they are not in the contract with the Republic, but he was liable because it is
No,
his
but the
property.
services are being provided to their properties, and it assists them in renting those properties. Without these services, they cannot rent. Those properties become uninhabitable, and landlords will not be able to rent properties that don't have utilities.
Okay. No more question?
Okay, seeing none, this is a public hearing item. I'll open it up for public comment. Oh, again, sorry, I keep forgetting that. The secretary has some remarks.
Correct, if there's no speakers.
If there's no speaker, we'll close the public hearing and then we'll go to the secretary.
President O'Neill and board members, as of the close of the public hearing, the city clerk's office has received 0 protests regarding this assessment. There is not a majority protest.
All right, thank you very much. I'll entertain a motion. Motion? Second. Second, please call for the vote. All right, go ahead, sorry.
Let me try that again.
Do you want to try that again?
Let me try that again. Sorry about that.
Nope, that still absent.
I don't know what happened to my screen.
There you are. Motion received, 7 yes votes.
Okay, well, now we'll go to 3C. This is a similar item as conduct a public hearing for a report detailing fees to be collected on the tax roll for sewer services outside the city limits, and adopt a resolution authorizing the collection of, on the tax roll of fees for the sewer service provided by the Garden Grove Sanitary District outside city limits. And I believe we have a staff report on that.
Item 3C is the annual process that allows the Garden Grove Sanitary District to collect sewer service charges on the property tax roll for those sewer customers located outside of the city limits that do not receive water services from the city. This is the section of the district in the county area near Anaheim and Stanton, just north of Catella Avenue, between Brookhurst and Gilbert. In order to place these sewer charges on the tax roll, the board must hold a public hearing on whether to approve the list of charges proposed to be collected on the tax roll and adopt a resolution approving the report. Adopting the attached resolution would approve the annual report and authorize the collection on the tax roll of sewer service fees for the properties served by the Garden Grove Sanitary District and located outside the city limits. The total number of parcels that these fees apply to is 1,856, and the total amount to be collected is $262,027.43. It is recommended that the Sanitary District Board of Directors conduct a public hearing, adopt the attached resolution approving the report, and authorizing the collection on the tax roll of sewer service fees for properties served by the Garden Grove Sanitary District and located outside the city limits by 5 affirmative votes, and direct staff to file the necessary documentation with the county for the collection of the fees on the property tax bills. This concludes staff's report, and we are available for any questions.
Thank you. Any questions for staff? Okay, we'll open up the public hearing. Anybody wish to speak on this? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. Madam Secretary has some comments.
My announcement.
Yep.
President O'Neill and board members, as of the close of the public hearing, the city clerk's office has received no protests regarding this assessment. Therefore, there is no majority protest.
Okay. Any discussion? Okay. I'll entertain a motion.
Second.
All right. Call for the vote.
Motion received, 7 yes votes.
All right. Last item, we're going to go to 3D. This is to conduct a public hearing and adopt resolutions approving the biannual budget for fiscal year 2019-2020 and year 2020-21, reappropriating project balances and encumbrances from fiscal year 18-19 and setting the fiscal year 19-20 appropriations limit. And staff has a report.
Yes, Mr. President and members of the board, in front of you is the proposed biannual budget. Sorry. In front of you is the proposed biannual budget for the Garden Grove Sanitary District for fiscal years 2019 through 21. The district operates 2 programs, sewer and solid waste. Both programs have attained a balanced budget with sufficient working capital for the ongoing operations of the utilities. A few budgetary highlights include the continuation of several major capital improvement projects, including sewer capital program and manhole inspection and replacement program. The Public Works Department is also continuing its effort for outreaching on educational purposes to bring awareness of the residents and the business for preservation of our sewer infrastructure, including fats, oils, and grease control. This is to monitor the business to prevent sewer line backup. Assembly Bill 939, waste diversion, and a new state mandate on commercial organic waste program. On this slide, it presents the proposed budget for both utilities. As you can see, both utilities maintains a healthy working capital or fund balance. Total operating expenses, including debt service, is less than 20% of the sewer fund's working capital and less than 30% of solid waste fund's working capital. which way exceeds the benchmark standard recommended by the Government Finance Officers Association. This concludes my presentation. I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you so much. Any questions of staff? Okay. We'll go ahead and, let's see, open up the public hearing. Anybody wish to speak on this? Mr. Dibbs?
Hi, my name's Nicholas Dibbs. As a science teacher and science person, I'd like to ask you, on the fats, oils, and grease education outreach program, who conducts that, or how is that implemented?
Our understanding is that our Public Works Department has an outreach efforts to the local businesses and restaurants. Additional information will be made available if you require that. Our Director of Public Works is here.
Okay, I'd be happy to talk to Bill later. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak? Okay. Seeing none, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing. Any member discussion? No? Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
Second.
Okay, got a motion and a second, please vote.
Motion received, 7 yes votes.
All right, any matters for sanitary district? Okay, seeing none, we'll adjourn to the next meeting, which will be Tuesday, August 27th. Thank you very much. We'll go back to council.
Thank you. We will reconvene. City Council go to consent items. It's recommended that items 4A through 4H be acted upon simultaneously unless anyone would like to pull an item. Do I have a motion?
Wait.
4A.
Yeah, I would like to pull 40.
Second.
Call to vote.
Motion received, 7 yes votes.
Mayor and colleagues, last week I asked our director, Bill Murray, to reconsider this audit study that cost $70,000, and I just want to report back to the council that I did have a following meeting with our director, Bill Murray, and we have a very good discussion. He explained to me that couple things. That is, this audit study, even though after it is completed, we have quite a few options at hand. One of which is with the council will could determine not to pursue it, but also in the event that we pursue with the implementation, we still have quite a few flexibility to proceed with that. One of which is, of course, we could give it all to Simon, or we could give partially to Simon and partially open up for other consideration. But it all have to be in accordance to the law, and by then the attorney will advise us of various implications, and then we can decide on what we want to do. And so I would like to commend Mr. Murray for being flexible and being very considerate of my request. I feel comfortable with supporting his request for this audit study, and that's why I would like to bring it out to shed some light, and also to thank you, Mr. Murray.
You're
I would
welcome,
like to
Mr.
make a
Murray.
motion to approve it.
Second.
Call the vote.
Motion received, 7 yes votes.
All right, that takes us on to public hearings, item 5A.
Item 5A is to conduct a public hearing and adopt resolutions and approve the proposed biennial budget for fiscal years 2019-20 and 2020-21, and the Finance Director, Ms. Song, is here to give the report.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. To the mayor and council members, let me just make a couple brief comments. I do want to go over several things. I know the members of the public that are here today. A couple weeks ago, we had a study session where we went through the budget. We talked about a lot of the things we're going to talk about tonight, but of course, it wasn't in an open session, and so this is a chance to really share pretty much all of the same information that we shared with you at the study session. My remarks are going to be very similar to what we talked about the other day, and then following that, I will turn over the remainder of the budget presentation to Ms. Song and to Ms. Eifert in the Finance Department to kind of walk us through their presentation. As you saw in this study session, there were a number of graphs and charts and other depictions of the budget that they want to, I know, just not only share with you, but share with all the members of the public. So with that, I want to thank the council members for their work with us to this point, working through this budget process. I'd like to begin by making some overall remarks about the budget prior to the presentation itself, followed by questions and feedback that you may wish to offer throughout. We're obviously open for any questions that you might have. And of course, Ms. Song, our new finance director, is here along with Ann Eifert. And all of our department directors are here monitoring the meeting, and should there be any questions about the budget, they'll be available to come and answer any questions. The staff and I are pleased to present the proposed biennial budget to you tonight for fiscal year 2019 and 2020 and fiscal year 2020 through 2021. The total all funds budget is approximately $259.5 million for fiscal year 1920 and $249.4 million for fiscal year 2021. The general fund budget, which we spent a lot of time focusing on, is $126.7 million for fiscal year 1920 and $132.4 million for fiscal year 2020 and 2021. I do want to highlight that this is a structurally balanced budget, meaning that projected expenditures do not exceed projected revenue, and no one-time internal service fund dollars are being used to balance the budget, which is the first time we've had that in a good bit of time. The budget also includes revenue that we will have to carefully consider allocating for future long-term financial stability, and I know our finance staff will talk more about that when they get to their presentation. You will note that the material that we're presenting tonight is much more comprehensive than that which you've received before. We're including a number of graphical depictions of the budget that we believe will make it easier for the public to understand this understandably complex subject matter. And you have, I know before you, attaches my cover letter that highlights the important aspects and highlights of the budget. You also have the proposed budget itself, and we also have the budget in brief to review with you, and all of these documents will have been and are on our website for the public's review. I do want to mention that we have worked diligently to keep this biennial budget faithful to our community vision and guiding principles, and I want to review those primarily for the members of the public that are listening. As a reminder, the vision of Garden Grove is to be a safe, attractive, and economically vibrant city with an informed and involved public. We are a diverse community that promotes our unique attributes and preserves our residential character. Our guiding principles say that we commit ourselves to the betterment of the individual, the organization, and the community by fostering a spirit of trust, creativity, cooperation, integrity, empathy, respect, and quality service to all. So let me talk a little bit about some of the budget highlights. I believe that more than anything else, this budget reflects our commitment to strengthen our public safety services. We made that commitment to the public when Measure O was passed last November, and we've been focused on living up to that commitment. Specifically, 16 additional Garden Grove Police Department positions are being recommended in this budget. That includes 1 sergeant, 10 additional police officers, and 5 non-sworn dispatchers and records specialists. And that's consistent with the press conference that we all had with the public back in January. We have also worked out a major partnership with the Garden Grove Unified School District on the revamp of our school resource officer program. It was a recommendation of our former police chief and working with our current chief and myself, and in close cooperation with the Unified School District. We are, as you know, you've approved a program to expand and make our school resource officers full-time officers, sworn officers, and we will also add to the increased complement of sworn officers that we have in the city of Garden Grove. And maybe a good time to mention to everybody, I think 4 years ago we had 161 sworn police officer positions. A lot of those positions were officers who were out on injury and other things, and we were really quite in a tough spot at a time when a lot of crime trends were going the wrong way, and we had issues going on in our city. With the addition of our 16 officers that this council has so graciously supported in the past for us, that brings our numbers up to 179 sworn officers. And with the additional 3 officers that we'll be adding to the school resource program, we'll be up to 183 sworn officers from 161. And I've been told by the chief and other people that that's the highest number of police personnel that we've ever had in this city, and I think it's much needed. It's been much requested by the community, and so we really wanted to make a big point of paying attention to that when we were preparing this budget. The budget also includes new equipment, increased funding for training, mandated increase for crime prevention partnerships are also included. I want to mention that on August 16th, when the transition to the Orange County Fire Authority begins, every response for fire EMS service will arrive with 4-person staffing, including 2 paramedics on every apparatus vehicle. This is an increase in 3-person and 1 paramedic staffing that currently exists today. We've also been able to include a number of other non-public safety core services. Some are increases in state and county mandates. Additional funding is also included for contractual increases for park maintenance, reseeding, and street sweeping, city facility maintenance costs. We have money in the budget for Reimagine and Buy in Garden Grove initiatives. We have a street sign replacement program is included, enhancements to that program, which mainly involves hiring a part-time person to focus on critical replacement of street signs. I know it's an issue that many of you have mentioned to me about seeing old dilapidated street signs in your districts. And one of the things we'd like to do is with this person work individually and closely with all of you in any way you see fit to help us try to identify signs in your districts that need replacement, and we'd like to do that. There are labor contract obligation costs covered in this budget. Phase 1 dollars for our very important enterprise resource planning project, which is the replacement of our antiquated 40-year-old financial system. This is the Phase 2. For the public's knowledge, we funded the first $3 million in the last 2-year budget, and $3.5 million will complete the ERP system for the next biennial budget. We have water and sanitary district plan projects are included. Upgrades in some areas, implementation of a commercial organic waste program that was mentioned earlier. They're all included as planned improvements. And there's some other initiatives that we'll be talking about later. I mentioned Measure O earlier in my remarks. First of all, letters of thanks and congratulations have been sent out to the newly appointed Measure O committee members. We will be scheduling our first meeting with that committee in late July, and we'll start out by reviewing the history of the resolutions and ordinances that go along with their creation. We'll be talking about ethics training with them like we do all of our advisory and commission groups. We'll be doing a lot of budget and CAFR review with them. And then we anticipate a second meeting later this year where after we actually start receiving some data on the Measure O revenue, that we'll be able to actually sit down and start sharing some, having some meaningful conversations with them. And obviously we'll be reporting to the City Council throughout that process. They are an advisory committee to you, and we'll be providing whatever staff assistance that the committee needs so that they can get information back to the full council. Before wrapping up, I just want to make a couple of additional comments. We are wrapping up our public safety facility request for proposal process, and we'll be reporting back to you shortly on that. We are looking at what our public safety facility needs are, and once we have an idea about what some of the needs, what some of the specifications are, we'll be able to share with you all of the results from that. And then, of course, Patricia and Ann will be discussing next steps on pension stabilization and a reserve fund policy later in this presentation that I know we want to talk about. And then finally, you will recall that in 2015 we completed an $8 million debt issuance to build Fire Station number 6. It was completed on time, on schedule. We also completed some police lobby renovations. We later refinanced that debt, and due to great work in completing those projects on time and on budget, we have about $1.5 million in existing capital improvement capacity to propose and to propose that some of that money be allocated to general design security improvements in City Hall. Right now, we have a very open floor plan in the city. It's a good, welcoming environment when you come to City Hall. It's good for interactivity, customer service, but we also want to balance that out with good security design in place as well. So with that, I want to thank the staff. Particularly, I want to thank Patricia and Ann for all of their hard work. I'll also mention on their staff, Janet Chung, Mina Yu on my staff have been very helpful. Janet being the professional budget analyst there who's worked on this in preparing all the material that's before you. And with that, I will turn the presentation over to the Finance Director.
Thank you, Mr. City Manager. Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. It is my pleasure to present to you the biannual budget for fiscal year 2019 to 2021. First of all, I want to thank the City Council and our City Manager for your clear direction and the full support for the development of this budget. As Mr. City Manager mentioned, this is a balanced budget, meaning that current expenses are fully funded by current revenues. This budget is developed per Council's priorities set for the next 2 fiscal years, with the emphasis in 5 areas: public safety, development, quality of life, community engagement and transparency, and financial sustainability. Our City Manager has mentioned that we have added a total of 16 police workforce personnel, and we also expanded our school resource officer program. One of the organizational priorities set forth for the upcoming years is to use economic development to grow revenue. Included in the proposed budget are funds set aside for developing an economic development strategic plan and resources to continue the current development activities, including the Grove District hotels, Brookhurst Triangle Phase 2, Westside development initiatives, and downtown reinvestment. The city continues its effort to enhance quality of life for our residents. Continue with the Reimagine Downtown initiatives, include the open streets. It's scheduled for fall 2020. Funds are also set aside for holiday lighting, amphitheater, and bike paths and trails. Continuously seeking partnership opportunities is another priority for staff that we're working with nonprofit organizations and business to attempt to resolve community issues. With the passage of Measure O, a Citizens Oversight Committee was formed to ensure transparency and accountability. Our first official meeting is scheduled for July 22nd. We're also committed in open data by investing in a fully integrated enterprise resources planning system, which will provide the capability of timely reporting on financial and operational data. The dashboard function will allow public access to view reports on key performance indicators, such as amount of spending, budgetary comparison, aging on receivables, payment activity, and so on. Recognizing the opportunity provided with the Measure funding, we are committed to implement best practices to focus on long-term fiscal health of the city. We will establish a set of comprehensive financial policies. These policies will set baseline standards for fiscal stewardship and perpetuate structural balance. The initial two policies staff is currently working on are pension funding policy and fund balance reserve or rainy day fund policy. We will provide more information on these two policies later in the presentation. Before diving into our proposed budget, I'd like to present a high-level overview of our fiscal condition. Looking back, the city has struggled with structural deficit for over a decade. The current year, fiscal year 2018-19, the adopted budget had a structural deficit of $4.2 million. The city achieved balancing that budget by reducing operational cost and deferring maintenance and CIP projects. Looking forward, Measure funding provides additional $19 million in sales tax revenue. The funding are committed for the enhancement to the police workforce, also the fire safety protection services, infrastructure improvements including building facility, streets and park facility maintenance improvement is also part of the proposed budget. Challenges ahead of us: the growing unfunded pension liability is a concern and is draining a lot of resources of the city. Infrastructure and maintenance, also community issues that many communities in Orange County are facing. Now, let's take a look at the biannual budget citywide with combined funds and encompasses the capital improvement projects. On this slide, it shows fiscal year 2019 to 20 all funds. The total estimated revenues is about $281 million, with total proposed expenditure about $279. Revenues from the general government operations occupy over 50% of total revenues, and 80% of that comes from what we call the big three. They are the property tax, sales tax, and transit occupancy tax or hotel tax. Second largest revenue component is the water utilities, with an estimated total revenue about $38 million. Revenues from housing authority is estimated at $35 million, ranking the third largest revenue source. On the expense side, general government operation represents over 50% of total proposed expenses. These include the cost for providing public safety, community services, street improvements, some economic development activities, and general city administration. General fund is the biggest portion of the general government expenditure, which is about $125.5 million, and we will go into further detail later in the presentation. Gas tax and Measure M2 provides a total about $10 million for street improvements and other street rehabilitation programs. This is year two, fiscal year 2021 at a glance. As you can see, for year two, overall revenue decreased by $18 million comparing to year one. This is primarily due to the decreased one-time revenue from successor agency as a result of winding down of the former redevelopment agency activities. Expenditures decreased simultaneously as projects coming to completion. The prudent estimates on grant revenue, as grants are budgeted with the cities receiving the funds notification or approval from the grantors. So these notifications usually comes in only 1 year ahead of time, and we're really just including the ones that we know for now. Expenditures funded by grant revenues are not budgeted accordingly, so you will also see fiscal year 2021 total expenditure decrease by similar amounts. On this slide, we're presenting the citywide authorized full-time position count. We're putting the adopted fiscal year 18-19 as a comparison to this position count. Part-time, temporary, or seasonal employees are not included. Total position count shows a net decrease of 83. It's composed of a decrease of 100 full-time positions in the fire safety due to the service transition to OCFA, an increase of 11 sworn and 5 non-sworn police positions, an increase of 1 water service worker in the Public Works Department who will be designated for fire hydrant maintenance. This function used to be performed by the fire department. Total number of authorized full-time positions for fiscal years 2019 to 20 and 2021 is 557. Previous slides showed total appropriations citywide across all funds. This slide and the next one will focus on operating budget by department. Operating budget does not include capital expenditures. The largest appropriation goes to the police department with a total of $66 million, occupies more than a quarter of overall operating budget for all funds, but primarily funded by the general fund. Public Works ranks second with a total spending package of $65 million. $13 million or 20% are funded by the general fund. The majority of water, sewer, and solid waste services, which are funded by service charges. Other funding sources include gas tax, Measure M2, and those are designated for street-related projects. Community and Economic Development has the third largest operating budget. Among the total $47 million, $7 million is funded by the general fund. Others are primarily from the successor agency, grants, and special assessments. Over 90% of the city manager's operating budget is for the Housing Authority. Housing Authority's budget has been separately presented earlier and adopted by the board. Fire's budget is primarily for contractual services with OCFA. The transition will take effective on August 16, 2019. This is year 2, fiscal year 2021 operating budget. Year 2 overall operating budget has a decrease of 4% from year 1, primarily due to the decrease in the Community Economic Development budget, specifically for the successor agency, and some of the grant funds were not accounted for as previously mentioned. This slide shows the total capital spending for year 1 and year 2. In the first year, we have budgeted $27.5 million. The largest investments are in street improvement, as well as water, sewer, and storm drain infrastructures. Year 2, we're only budgeting for $19.9 million. The decrease is largely due to availability of grant funding. Once the funding source or capital financing is confirmed, we will update our CIP budget during our mid-cycle review. This slide shows a summary of grant revenues for the next 2 fiscal years. Year 1, we're estimating to receive about $9 million from various sources, including state, federal, county, various grants. The lowered amount in year 2 is attributable to one-time grant money, for example, CDBG. In year 1, we had a one-time $1 million for various residential street rehab projects. We also have $1 million from OCTA bike corridor improvement, $900,000 for various traffic improvement. Measure M2, Comprehensive Transportation Funding Program for the Euclid-Westminster intersection improvement is included in year 1, but not yet in year 2, as we're still waiting for the funding availability from the state and county. The city will continue aggressively seeking federal and state funding. During the mid-cycle review, we'll update you with new funding sources. The city has several component units, including the sanitary district, the housing authority, and the successor agency. Those budget was previously presented tonight, and thank you for approving them. What I like to show here is the water utility. Several highlights here. Last rate study was done in March 2018 with a scheduled 5-year rate increases started in fiscal year 17-18. A new component for capital improvement was included in the new rate structure to allow the utility to carry out the needed capital projects to preserve our existing infrastructure, as well as expand service capacity to meet the community's growing needs. The department strives to stay in compliance with various regulations by investing in staff training, technology enhancement, and infrastructure maintenance. The slide here shows the proposed budget with the new rates for the water utility. Under the business principles established for the water utility, the fund is to maintain a 2 months of cash flow, 500,000 contingency reserves, and 5% of system replacement reserves. These reserve requirements has been excluded from the available beginning fund balance as shown on the slide, because I don't want you to have a heartburn seeing only 5 million available as the beginning fund balance. Looking from the working capital perspective, which is the net difference between current asset and current liabilities, the fund currently has over 7 months' worth of working capital, which is above the GFOA recommended minimum threshold. GFOA is the short for Government Finance Officers Association. It is a national organization that has been recognized as a leader in the municipal finance area, and it has been setting standards for many municipalities across the nation. So with this said, that the fund is holding a very healthy working capital, yet we're still staying on top of it to make sure that the fund will be achieving structural balance down the road. Now let's take a deep dive into our general fund biannual budget. This slide shows fiscal year 2019-20 sources and uses of the fund. Over 85% of total revenue derives from the big three: property tax, sales tax, and hotel tax. The other 15% include business tax, franchise fee, building permits and fees, street repairs, and payment from water, sewer, and solid waste utilities. On the expenditure side, over 70% is to fund for public safety, 50% for police safety, and 20% for fire safety. Over 10% for public works, which covers streets, parks, and building maintenance. The rest are divided among other departments, including community and economic development, community services, and city administration. Consistent with prior year's conservative budget approach, we developed this biannual budget for the general fund from our baseline, our adopted fiscal year 2018-19 budget. Changes to the baseline target is listed on the slide. The highlighted line represents supplemental changes to the baseline, and it spells out what made up the 4.8 million. As you can see, 3.9 applied towards enhancing public safety. 567,000 is designated for the Buy in Garden Grove initiative, specifically for the newly launched sales tax rebate program that will go into effective on July 1st. Also, 176,000 was added for community services events, including holiday lighting, signage maintenance. 80,000 was designated for citywide facility repairs. Many of the projects were deferred due to the budget shortfall in prior years. Now let's take a look at year 2 general funds budget. Revenue is projected to increase by 2.8 million. Expenditure, however, is estimated to go up by 5.5 million. This slide shows the similar information as year 1. Although for both years you can see we're projecting operating surpluses, here shows on the bottom. For year 2, we are showing 4.5 million in surpluses, and for the previous year, we're showing 7.2. During the budget study session, Council Member Buyi was asking why we're rapidly declining on this projected surplus. We will have to look into the components of the revenues, the general fund's revenue and expenditures to explain the reason behind it. And this slide actually shows the same slide that we had presented to you during the study session. The blue line indicates the general fund's revenue. The red is on the expenditure. The two lines will cross during fiscal year 2021-22, which is less than 3 years from now. This means if we do not have an effective strategy to control the growth in expenditure and to effectively control our unfunded liabilities, we will be going back into a structural deficit situation. And this is why it is crucial for us to strengthen our financial sustainability right now while we can. Sustainability means fiscal discipline. We cannot continuously grow our spending, and at the same time, we need to invest in revenue-generating efforts through development, through cost recovery initiatives, and through technology. The initial step we're taking with this proposed budget is to initiate two important fiscal policies, as mentioned earlier. Financial policies set baseline standards for fiscal stewardship and ensure structural balance. Per direction from the City Council, initial focus on these policies is placed on addressing unfunded pension liability and establishing an appropriate level for the general fund reserve or rainy day fund. As mentioned earlier, this slide shows the component of major general fund revenues and expenditures. On the revenue side, we're estimating reasonable growth, especially for the big three. Sales tax, in our projection, we have used a 1.5 increase assumption. Property tax, we are estimating a 3% year-over-year growth, and hotel tax, a 2% increase. Looking at the expenditure now. The biggest chunk of expenditure is the personnel cost, which occupies more than 60% of the entire general fund's budget. The second large category is the contractual, which is about 25% of the total general fund's budget. Now let's look at the change between the 2 years for both revenue and expenditures. On the revenue side, we have demonstrated the growth that we're projecting that was used on the line graph. And on the expenditure side, we're seeing a growth of 3.4%, mostly driven by the rise of pension costs and some MOU changes. For contractual obligation, we're projecting a 13.5% increase in year 2. This is caused by inflation as well as the passing of Senate Bill 3, which increases minimum wage by 50% in 6 years. It was started in 2017. A lot of our services are relying on contractual services like landscaping, street pavements, and with the minimum wage going up and with the prevailing wage requirements, it has a lot of burden on municipalities. And that's why cost containment has been very challenging for the city to stay compliant with the laws, regulations, as well as being fiscally conservative. Take a look at the unfunded pension liability. The information supporting this graph is coming from the CalPERS August 2018 valuation report. This is the most recent data that we have on hand. CalPERS is always 2 years lag, so now it's showing the information presented to us last year was showing for June 30th, 2017. The blue line represents our miscellaneous plan. The employees covered under miscellaneous plan are all the non-sworn positions, and the red line is a safety plan. As you can see, CalPERS is telling us that during the next 2 years, there will be an increase to the employer contribution towards the unfunded liability by 10% per year. Translating that into dollar amounts, we are seeing a $268 million unfunded liability in aggregate between the two funds. So that became one of the priorities, how the city can address this issue, how we can apply strategies to manage this ever-growing liability. These are the two policies that we're working on along with this year's budget. The pension funding policy, it sets a systematic and disciplined method to accumulate resources to be used towards the funding pension liability and future benefit payments. It sets the parameters of minimum funding level, plans to reduce existing funded liability, and provision for pension benefit enhancements. We will bring a policy to the City Council for consideration and adoption in early August with funding requests. The second policy is the fund balance reserve policy. As explained earlier, GFOA recommends set aside an appropriate level of unrestricted fund balance in the general fund. The purpose of the reserve is to ensure prudent level of financial resources is maintained to protect our community against service disruption in the event of unexpected temporary revenue shortfall, such as economic downturn, or unforeseen one-time expenditures, including natural disasters. This pretty much concludes the presentation on the biannual budget. And we'd like to recommend the City Council to adopt the resolutions to approve our fiscal year 2019 to 21 biannual budget and the appropriations limit set for 2019-20 per government code. We're also asking the City Council to approve the water supply program biannual budget, the overnight conference and training list, and the updated classification specification. The classification specification is updated to add an emergency operations coordinator position. This will be a part-time position to fulfill the duties that are currently carried by the city fire management personnel. With the transition to OCFA, the responsibility for EOC function will need to be handled by the city staff. This new part-time position will work with the city manager's office, police department, public works, and other city departments to update and maintain the city's emergency and disaster preparedness program, ensuring compliance with state and federal emergency planning and training regulations, manage the city's CERT program, which is Community Emergency Response Team, and manage the city's ambulance contract. We have included in the budget about $70,000 for this proposed part-time position once approved. Next steps. In August, we'll be bringing the pension funding policy for the council for adoption, and in December, while we closed fiscal year 18-19, we'll bring the fund balance policy for adoption. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you very much.
And,
Yeah, past their bedtimes.
So, Mr. Mayor, members of council, thanks to our finance staff, and we're available for any questions that you might have.
Questions, comments? Colleagues, we've seen this a few times, so we're already pretty up to speed on this, but what's that? Yeah, we do have a public hearing. Thank you, Kim. We'll go ahead and open the public hearing, and I do have one card from Nick Dibbs. Please come on up.
Mayor Jones, members of the council, my name is Nicholas Dibbs. The budget is already more or less set in stone. It's gone through the study sessions and so on. So I'm not sure, no matter what I say, is anything going to change? Or is there flexibility? This is a biennial budget of 2 years, so does the council have the flexibility to tweak it as we go along? Or add things, take things away, or whatever? I don't know what the answer to that question is. So I'll ask the finance director, does the council have the right to, once they adopt the budget, can they still make changes? I can't hear your answer.
Yeah.
Do you want us in?
Please,
Okay.
please
Oh,
go
okay,
ahead.
good.
We'll keep this informal. Go ahead. Yeah.
Huh?
What's that?
So, okay. Well, typically, the budget is basically our work plan for the coming 2 years. So council always reserves the right to make any changes to it, any reductions, any additions to it. We don't like to do it very often once we establish a budget. But on rare occasions, we have, made additions to the budget, enhancements to different things. But as a general practice, you want to stay pretty faithful to, your work plan for the coming year.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Stiles. The reason I ask this is there's two important things, and they may not cost very much, but according to the finance director, under the Budget Development Foundation, the enhanced quality of life, I would like to propose, and I've mentioned this at a number of council meetings, that we bring back a youth commission, or what could be called a youth or advisory committee on youth, to help the city. I know that the school district manages things when students are in school. However, there's a significant role that the city can play in after-school programs, weekend programs for the youth of our community to help reduce suicides and get them active in outdoor events and so on. And having this commission would be very good. I don't think it would cost much. So I'd like to ask that you put the Youth and Government Day program back online under a youth commission, as well as some other things such as the Safe Route to Schools program. Now, the Safe Routes to Schools program could be funded under the public safety component of the budget. Under the proposal that was submitted, that the council voted in on at the May 28th meeting, there's only 6 elementary schools in Garden Grove that are part of a pilot program on the Safe Routes to School program. And we really need to get the students off of their computers and walking and getting exercises and exercising and walking to school. So it's very healthy for the students. So could we enhance the Safe Route to Schools program and bring it online all of the elementary schools within Garden Grove? And I have here a handout that I prepared in an email that I've already sent you. But the state of Utah has already developed this statewide, and other states are using it too. And so you'll have that in the handout. And so I want to encourage the council to please consider in the next year and within the next year or more recently, please bring in a youth commission #1 or an advisory committee on youth and so on, which would include.
Thank you, Nick.
And then the Safe Routes to School. So here's the handout. I didn't see the timer go up, so that's why I was.
It's just you were getting off topic on, we're focused on the budget at the moment, so if you could, thanks.
Okay, so on the budget specifically, I do want to bring up 2 things. On page 118 and 119, under traffic mitigation, there's $175,000 the first year and nothing on the second year. And under public safety, there's $1,550,000 the first year and nothing on the second year. So that's why I do have a question on those 2 items. So under traffic mitigation, I would like to propose that you consider either there or somewhere else the Safe Routes to School program, enhancing it and expanding it to all elementary schools. And on the public safety, that could be under public safety. And then on the, and the traffic mitigation, okay. So I don't know if somebody can address this. Why is it, do we have a 0 figure on the second year for those 2 items?
Steve, do you want staff to address this, or? I can answer that. So the traffic mitigation, the $175,000, again, that's one of the funds that we just know a year in advance of what we're going to get. So we, working with the engineering department, we know we're going to get in fiscal year 1920 $175,000 in traffic mitigation. In the second year, it's 0 because we don't know what that amount is going to be. And we do a fiscal year 2021 budget amendment, and when we know that value, we'll appropriate those funds at that time. For the $1.5 million, the fund, we just simply call that public safety. It's the public safety funds that were previously used for the bond for this Fire Station 6. And so that $1.5 million is the leftover bond money that we have slated to do various public safety improvements throughout City Hall and other facilities that we'll identify at a later time. That's the public, that's the City Hall security improvements.
Okay, well, thank you. And I just, again, if we can somehow put those 2 items in, Youth Commission and the Safe Routes to School expanded program somewhere in there. And that's all I wanted to add on that. Thank you very much. And I did want to say the youth commissions are backed by the Kaiser Foundation for Wellness, and we have the City of Huntington Beach, City of Anaheim, Long Beach, and many cities having a youth commission. So I hope George and your colleagues and Mayor Jones will please consider that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. That was the only card I have, so I will close the public hearing. Colleagues.
Mr. Mayor? Just a couple comments. You know, I received 2 texts this weekend on the budget, one from a media type, one from a community member. But both of them focused on the same thing, and I'm glad you clarified it. $18 billion decline between 20 and 21. I think you basically summed it up due to the successor agency wind down. So that $18 million decline plus the grant application of not knowing for sure if you're going to get that grant money or not, so you can't really account for it. So anyway, thank you for covering that. Also, the other one was a $10 million decline in revenue between the 2 years. I think you accounted for that for the same successor agency wind down. And again, thanks for covering that, because I know that at least 2 people were keying in on that. One thing I wanted to point out, I hear a lot of controversy still about the hotel TOT, and you know, I'm glad you had that slide. You know, counting 20% of our city's revenue comes from that TOT now, which is the hotel occupancy tax that the voters put in. I know at the time it was very controversial. There was a lot of issues with the hotels and stuff, but I just want to show and spotlight to our community what a success those hotels have been for our city. I mean, 20% of our revenue, annual revenue coming in from that. So just wanted to focus that. And also, I am anxious to hear our pension fund down, our pension liability fund down efforts and how we're going to proceed with that. I think that's a real important thing for our community, for the sustainability of our community. And so very good staff report. One item that I would ask, and especially if you're going to add it to the website or whatever, I love your slides. I love the graphs and the charts and all that. But could we get a Cliff Notes version for the public consumption? I mean, we've gone through the study sessions. We've seen the chart. But it makes it a lot easier for the general public instead of big pie charts and this and that. If we just have, you know, year 1, year 2, year 3, 1 page, real easy peasy, post that up for the community. I think that is very helpful for a lot of people who don't have, you know, they're not Phi Beta Kappas and whatnot.
Totally agree. Yeah, we actually have developed infographics.
That's even too complicated. I saw that. Now, just a simple Cliff Note, no chart, no pictures, just boom, boom, boom. You know, real easy to read, real easy to digest. Anyway, that's just a suggestion. If you could do that, I think a lot of people would be very happy about that.
Will do.
Thank you.
Anything else? I'd like to move adoption of the resolutions and approval of the budget.
Second it.
I just want to say thank you to everybody that's done work on this. This is a long, drawn-out process. And if you look at the city of Garden Grove, where we've come in the last 2.5 years from where we were, what we were looking at just a few years ago, and that came from hunkering down. We didn't know about Measure O back then. We were hunkering down, cutting the budget 5% across the board, doing more with less like we always do. Everybody stepped up for that. But now you look at where we're at, you know, balanced budget. We're able to provide more services than we've ever provided before in the city of Garden Grove. We got things happening. Now we see lines intersecting a few years down the road, so we can't just be spending money we don't have, because we got to be conservative with that money, because in a few years those lines will intersect again, so keep costs down. But we've come a long way. There's so much good stuff going on here. I'm excited about what's happening, and mostly for providing all those services to residents. And now we have a long way to go there too. We have a lot of street improvement we want to do. We're still trying to find the money to do a lot of that. But the signs, pothole replacement, trash, parking, code enforcement, those are things that we're working on, but we've come a long way. So thank you very much. I'm excited to pass this budget tonight for a 2-year budget.
Thank you.
Yeah, same.
We have a motion and a second. We'll call the vote.
Thanks for letting me vent.
No, thanks for that wrap up, John.
Nutshelled it very well.
Motion received, 7 yes votes.
5B.
Item 5B is to conduct a public hearing and adopt a resolution establishing and amending user fees for various city services. And Ms. Song is here to give the report.
Yes, Mayor and City Council members, the item before you is a resolution establishing and amending certain user fees for various city services. As you are aware, the city is responsible for providing a variety of services to its residents. Services that support the general public, such as public safety, are supported by taxes, and others are other non-fee revenues. Services that are more elective and in nature and have specific beneficiaries are typically supported by user fee charges. By law, user fee must not exceed the cost of the service being provided. In 1994, the City Council adopted a master fee schedule which combined the city's fees for services into one document. Periodically, the Finance Department coordinates with all city departments to review the fee schedule and identify if any fee should be adjusted, added, or removed. The resolution in front of you is requesting adding 5 new fees and adjusting 2 existing fees. The 5 new fees are Neighborhood Community Meeting Fee. This fee pertains to development activities only. Certain proposed planning entitlement projects requires communication with and feedback from the neighborhood and community. These meetings require the staff coordination and notification to local businesses and residents within a certain radius of the project location. The proposed fee is $450, partially offset the cost of the city staff for the preparation and coordination of these meetings, as well as direct costs for mailing and notice publication. Neighborhood community meetings are not mandatory for all development projects. When deemed necessary, developer will approach the city to facilitate such meetings. This fee would apply only when such meetings were requested upon the city. The second new fee is public noticing fee. Legal notices are required for all planning entitlements. Oftentimes, businesses or residents within a specific radius of a project location must be given written notice of the entitlement details and public hearing date before the Planning Commission meeting. The proposed fee amount is $345, which will cover the city's cost of publishing legal notices, printing, mailing, and other direct costs. The third new fee is a non-refundable administration fee for construction and demolition waste recycle program. The proposed fee amount is $170. The California Green Building Standards Code requires certain types of construction or demolition projects recycle or divert construction waste from landfills. The city has established a refundable deposit last year to incentivize companies or individuals to recycle construction waste to help the city meeting the state mandate. This proposed non-refundable administrative fee is necessary to recover the cost of staff time to process deposits and refunds and monitor the program compliance. The fourth and fifth new fees are the pool room permit fee and the pawnbroker permit fee, each set at $350. The city's municipal code requires a regulatory permit along with business license for the operation of pool rooms and pawn shops. The fees are proposed to recover the cost of staff time for both the police department and finance department to administer the code requirements. The cost is estimated at approximately $600. We're recommending set the fee at $350 for the initial year, with the potential to ramp up during the next 2 fiscal years to achieve, hopefully, full cost recovery. The 2 fees that being recommended for adjustments are secondhand dealer solicitor permits. Current fee schedule lists these 2 fees at the same rate with a combined title. Yet solicitor permit is also separately listed in the same fee schedule. The proposed adjustment is to revise the name of the permit and make the secondary dealer permit as its own fee, since it operates under a separate business category. The second-hand dealer permit fee is recommended at the same level of the pool room and pawnbroker permit, which is $350. Lastly, the massage operator permit fee. Current fee is set at $290, while actual cost for administering the massage operations average to $660. We therefore propose to update this fee to $625. The updates to all these fees are listed on Schedule A attached to the resolution. Justification for each fee along with cost analysis are listed on the third attachment to the staff report. Again, all of the proposed new fees and fee adjustments are below the cost of providing these services. A public hearing is required for fee update and new fee establishments. Notices were published on June 12th and June 19th in accordance with the government codes, and all related documentations were made available for the 10-day public review period at the City Clerk's office since June 10. Once approved by the City Council, the new fees will become effective 60 days after the adoption of the resolution. And that concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions of staff?
Mr. Mayor, I do have a question. The public notice fee, that will be applied to the developer who's trying to do the plan so we can notify the community? Is that the way I'm looking at it?
Those are the legal notices that required for all planning entitlements. So
Right.
essentially, yes.
So the developer would end up paying that 300 plus, but isn't that already incorporated in the filing fee? I mean, I don't want to necessarily make it harder for developers to come to our city. I mean.
No. Yeah, that component has never built in any other fees. This is a brand-new component that we're trying to recover, just the direct cost for publishing, for notification, for mailing.
We've been doing this notification now for 60-plus years, for free, basically?
Yes.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Current entitlement fees are not 100% recovery either.
That is correct, yeah. In the budget presentation, we're saying one of the method we're trying to achieve fiscal sustainability is trying to recover the cost. This is one of the small steps towards that goal.
All right, thank you.
I'll open the public hearing. Do not have any cards. So, okay, would you like to speak on this particular item, correct? Okay.
I do have one question. Just a question. On
If you can please just address it to us, and then we'll.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
thanks.
page 2 of the cost documentation for proposed fee change, if you look down here at the bottom one where it says actual city costs, it says title planner, hourly rate $91.09. It says 4 hours. You extend that over, they added it, they didn't multiply it. I'm just wondering if that was corrected on the document you have. Instead of $91.09 plus times 4 hours, they added it. It came up with a total of $95.09. That should actually be something like $364.36. I mean, I don't know if it was corrected on your copy.
Yeah, looks like good catch. Duly noted, and we'll get corrected.
Okay, so that would change the whole title on here, and I don't know if you need to adjust that fee to the end user or not, but anyway.
It can just be
Like I say,
amended as a correction.
Didn't spend 7 years in high school for nothing.
I love it.
He surely know how to count.
Okay, any?
I have question.
Oh, hold on. We still have a public hearing open, unless you want to. Okay, any others? We're going to close the public hearing and then go ahead.
Okay, on page number 3, for the massage operator permit, we have quite a lot of massage parlor in our city, a lot of them. Some of them are good operators, others are not. And some might be even violating state and federal laws because they're doing some illegal activity there. I think it's very important that we want to make sure that that we govern them, monitoring them appropriately, to make sure that we have a safe environment for our residents. And so I think I would like staff to look at that and see if in the future we need to do more than what we estimate the true cost here. Secondly, I don't think this is a type of business that we should subsidize. Right here, I see the cost for $661, and the fee proposed is $625. I think we just go straight, and whatever cost we should recuperate that. So I would like to change the proposed fee for now to show that it is $661. And I would like to make that change if we can.
I would support that change.
Yeah, I support it too, to get as close to cost recovery as possible. So I don't know if we have to
Do we have to do anything, or?
Yeah, you can do it. That's why you have the public hearing today, and it's before you today, so you can adopt the resolution with those changes.
Okay, no more question.
Any other questions or comments?
Second.
Call the vote.
Okay. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay. Motion received with 7 yes votes.
All right, 5C.
5C is adoption of a resolution confirming the Garden Grove Tourism Improvement District Advisory Board report and levying an assessment for fiscal year 2019-20, and Ms. Lee is here to give the report.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. The item before you tonight is to adopt a resolution confirming the annual report of the Garden Grove Tourism Improvement District, also known as the GGTID, and levying the assessment for fiscal year 2019 through 2020 for the Garden Grove Tourism Improvement District. Tonight, this is part 2 of the GGTID approvals. The city is required to conduct a public hearing of the levying of assessment for GGTID and advisory board each year. The Garden Grove Tourism Improvement District was established by the Garden Grove City Council in accordance with the Parking and Business Improvement Area Law of 1989, California Streets and Highways Code Section 36500 etc. through the adoption of Resolution Number 9009-10 on August 24th, 2010, and Ordinance Number 2782 on October 26, 2010. On February 22nd, 2011, the City Council approved an agreement with the Anaheim Orange County Visitor and Convention Bureau, also known as BCB, and now changed to Visit Anaheim, to fund collective tourism marketing efforts. The current GGTPC fiscal year 2019-2020 budget is proposed at $907,000, and the Visitor and Convention Bureau's budget for 2019-2020 budget is $1.95 million, and the current occupancy rate for the Garden Grove hotels is 82%. Currently, Garden Grove has a TOT rate of 14.5%, and the GGTID in Tier 1 is at a rate of 2.5%, and Tier 2 is 0.05%. This just gives you a synopsis of the historical trend of the GGTID. We're showing it from fiscal year 13-14 all the way up to current year. Oh, sorry. Did you need something? Oh, okay. And the purpose of the GGTID is to provide revenue to defray the cost of advertising and marketing efforts designed to increase overnight stays, construction and maintenance of improvements, and other services, activities, and programs that promote and encourage tourism within the GGTID, which benefits the operators of hotels paying assessments through the promotion of scenic, recreational, cultural, and other attractions. This is just a snapshot of some of the items that the GGTID has supported throughout the 2018-2019 year. They are very supportive of city and community organizations. If there are no protests, staff recommends the mayor and city council to move forward and approve the resolution of 2019-2020 and the annual report, conduct the public hearing, and staff is here to answer any questions.
All right, any questions, staff?
Comment, but I know you have.
Well, yeah, okay, do you want to open the public hearing first and do that part? Let's go ahead and open the public hearing. Anyone? Hey there, come on up.
Counting problem again?
I do have just a couple of quick questions. On the cover sheet, this is the interdepartment memorandum from Mr. Stiles. Oh, no, it's to Mr. Stiles. Page 1, it has Tier 1 and Tier 2, and on paragraph 2, where it lists Tier 2 hotels, it only lists the Great Wolf Lodge. Isn't there other hotels down, I think it's where Palm Street cuts through and goes to Garden Grove Boulevard? Why is that not included? The other question is this new hotel that's been approved that's going to go down there on south of 22, were they made aware of this? And will they be included, and at what rate? Next question, what's going to happen with this money? Is this just used for advertising? Or I think I read somewhere that it's going to be used for landscaping, or, so I'm totally confused on what it's for. And if it's for advertising or for things like landscaping, can't we stipulate that that money must be spent, if at all possible, in businesses in Garden Grove? I mean, why should we spend that money from this tax in the city of Anaheim or Santa Ana or anywhere else for that matter? So I'm just confused. And is there who decides how this money gets spent? Is there like a commission or something that I missed somewhere? Yeah. And do they have meetings that I can attend and just kind of sit down and listen? So those are my questions. Like I say, I don't really have a problem with it, but I'm just, I would also be curious why there's the difference in the rates, 2.5 on one end and 0.5 on the other. I mean, it sounds like somebody's doing a great, well, he's not doing a Great Wolf Lodge a favor. It's just like the people who choose to stay there are paying less in taxes. So those are my questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak? Okay, Sienna, we'll close the public hearing. Any of that you feel compelled to address?
Yeah, I mean, it's really easy. This is really a self-assessment.
Yeah.
The hoteliers came to the city and asked for us to create this district. And initially, the Great Wolf was not constructed or was in the process. And it was negotiated under Tier 2 because, first of all, it only ends at Great Wolf because they were the last property owner hotelier to want to be included in the district, and they negotiated a lower rate because they're so far from Anaheim Resort District, and also they created their own entertainment different from Anaheim, so they argued and they agreed to a lower percentage because to some extent they were going to benefit less from the advertising that the hoteliers otherwise we're going to spend the money on. And yes, there is a committee, it's actually a corporation that recommends and adopts a budget for it, and it's comprised of the general managers of the hotels. Again, this is a tax that they impose on themselves, that they've agreed to collect it among themselves to be used for advertising and to generate more hotel stays in their hotels. And the reason why we don't have any more hotels is because those property owners haven't come to the city to ask to be included.
I'd make a motion if any.
Please go ahead.
Motion?
Can I just briefly let you know that we did not receive any protests?
Duly noted.
All right.
Awesome, thank you. We have a motion, a second. Please call to vote.
Motion received, 7 yes votes.
Awesome. Takes us on to commission and committee matters. I would like to ask that we continue 6A to agendize at our next meeting if we can.
Okay.
Thank you. So we'll go on straight from there to items for consideration. We do have several. 7A.
Item 7A is award of contract to Visilji for project number 7414, Cannery Imperial Interim Storm Drain Improvements, and Mr. Murray is here to give the report.
Thank you, Mr. Pomeroy. Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Tonight, City Council is being asked to award a contract to Visilji Incorporated for the construction of an interim storm drain system to alleviate flooding on Magnolia Street at Garden Grove Boulevard and on Magnolia just south of its intersection with Cannery. The storm drain will tie into the existing storm drain at Gilbert and traverse west through Imperial to Magnolia Street, and then north up Magnolia Street to Cannery, and in Cannery continuing north to the north side of Garden Grove Boulevard. The storm drain will consist of about 1,560 feet of 60-inch plastic storm drain pipe and 1,020 feet of 48-inch plastic storm drain pipe, and of course the required catch basins, laterals, and related utility work with that project. All of this work is to be completed at a cost of almost $3.6 million. It should be noted that this is an interim storm drain whose main purpose is to alleviate the use of city crews and police staff during minor and medium rainfalls. The final solution for the flooding on Magnolia is the construction of Master Plan Storm Drain Line B5, which is estimated to cost nearly $30 million. It's a steep cost for Line B5, and that's why it wasn't put in the first place. We do not have any funding for that. Staff received and opened 3 bids on June 12th of this year and determined that Visilage Incorporated was the lowest responsible bidder. Should the council decide to award the contract tonight, the contractor can begin work in July and should be complete by the end of the year. This project was included in this year's capital improvement plan and will be paid for using gas tax and drainage funds. This concludes staff's report, and I'm available should you have any questions.
I have several questions. So first of all, the $3.6 million, the money is not come from the general fund, right?
That is correct.
And so where we get the money from?
This
Just
is
for the general public information.
This is a gas tax, and specifically the new gas tax SB1. This year's allocation, we're basically spending the entire amount on this storm drain.
That's great. And also, how long the project going to be so we can anticipate the constituents anticipate for the traffic delay and all stuff?
We're going to start it next month, and we're anticipating completion before the end of the year. So, it's quite a bit of work, and the contractor did a pretty good job. We just had them out on a project on Woodbury, that particular area over there, and they really have done well.
Well, first of all, I just want to make a comment. It was an ongoing many years, especially when we have a light rain, a moderate rains, the whole Magnolia is completely shut down. And we did, the city did spend a lot of personnel, public works and police to block out the street for safety. So thank you, Bill, for having this project moving forward after the vote tonight.
Is that a motion?
I go for the motion.
Second. Call the vote.
Motion received, 7 yes votes.
Yeah, can I make a quick comment? I think it's very important for the public to understand that Bill and his team is trying the very best to eradicate the flooding issue on Magnolia and in the area. But this is a very difficult situation. It's not necessary that all of the flooding will be going away. We hope that we can minimize the flooding, but don't expect it to be that there won't be any flooding, especially when the rain is getting harder. What we are hoping is, at least we're taking care of the light rain, flooding during light rain. And in order to fix this, it would take a lot more effort. And even though this money come from the gas tax measure, but we have to prioritize, because this issue is directly impact the public safety in such a way that there might be casualty when people are traveling through flooding, as opposed to using this fund to fix road pothole, which is a nuisance, but it's not a major crisis. And so that's why I think our public work can make the right decision, and I would like to commend public work for zero in this really critical issue that we need to take care of.
Thank you. 7B.
Item 7B is adoption of a resolution implementing terms and conditions of employment for central management and city manager to be the same as OCEA, Employees League, and middle management. And Ms. Lee is here to give the report.
Good evening, Mayor and the members of the City Council. The item before you is to request to adopt the resolution for approval to implement terms and conditions of employment for the city's central management group identified in the resolution and the city manager. The terms and conditions to be same as the Orange County Employees Association, OCEA, and the OCEA Employees League and the middle management group. To maintain parity within job families of city employees, the city has historically extended the wage and benefits provisions afforded to Orange County Employees Association and the OCEA Employees League and middle management to the central management group and the city manager. The recently approved OCEA and League's MOUs have adjusted wages and benefit provisions that go into effect July 1 of 2019. Therefore, the resolution applicable to central management employees and the city manager has been prepared to be consistent with the 2019 to 2022 provisions of the OCEA and the League. The new provision, the new resolution provides the following in fiscal year 1920, a 2.5 base salary increase and a 1% salary increase to step H of the salary range. In fiscal year 2021, a 2.5 base salary increase and a $150 increase to the city's cafeteria benefits. In fiscal year 21-22, a new 5% step I at the top of the salary range and a $100 increase to the city's cafeteria benefits. The estimated cost for the provisions of the resolution for members of the central management and the city manager are approximately $64,453 for fiscal year 2019-20 and $70,015 for fiscal year 2021 and $38,232 for fiscal year 2022. Future budget appropriations will be made as appropriate to accommodate these estimated costs. It is recommended that the City Council adopt the attached resolution implementing the terms and conditions of the employment for the city's central management group and the city manager. This concludes the staff report, and I'm available for any questions. Thank you.
Please go ahead, George.
Question. On, looking over that new step, how many employees are we talking about that will be affected by that new step within this period?
At some point, all of our members of the central management will be affected within the life of the resolution.
So how many would that be?
We have 11 members.
And they'll all be affected
At
new
some
step
point, yes.
during this 2-year cycle?
Yes, 3-year cycle.
So basically, we're talking a 10% raise and $200 total towards the cafeteria.
Yes.
Okay. Again, I'm not against it, but this kind of stuff, I honestly think we should be able to discuss prior to, coming out on a final vote, like we do with the other contracts and stuff like that. But I don't want to hold things up. I just think this is something that we should be discussing in closed session prior to coming before us, but I'm good with it.
I just want to make a comment before I make the motion to approve. I agree sort of with your sentiments, half in, half out, but this is something that I've addressed before with this body and our staff, that whenever we make these contract negotiations, we need to think 5 steps ahead and how that's going to help all the other parties that are going to come. And I don't think that we did that this go around. So I'm going to motion to approve because it's fair. It's what we gave the others, and let's just continue this on. But when 3 years are up, 2 years are up, 5 years are up with the other contracts, we need to seriously look at what it is that we're approving, because it's going to affect the negotiations for everyone else. And so that way we can avoid coming to this dais and saying, well, we should have thought of that before.
Again, we should be having these discussions prior to it coming here for a vote. And so I don't necessarily agree with this just being on the agenda without us having some insight and discussion on it prior to it. But again, like my colleague said, it's a fair contract, and I'm not obliged to kill it or anything. But
I'll motion to approve.
Call the vote.
Motion received, 7 yes votes.
Seven C.
Item 7C is approval of a second amendment to the agreement with Geo Group, Inc. for fiscal years 2019-22 through 22 to provide jail booking and security. And the chief is here to give the report.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council. We are seeking city council approval of a second amendment to the agreement with the Geo Group Incorporated for 3 years, starting in fiscal year 2019 through 2020, through fiscal year 2021 to 2022, to provide 24-hour jail booking and security for the police department. The police department has contracted with Geo for 24-hour jail booking and security services since 2000. In 2015, the police department completed a formal RFP process for jail contract services, and Geo was the winning bid. There was only one other proposal during the RFP process. In June 2015, the City Council approved a 3-year contract agreement with Geo and agreed the contract could be renewed on a 3-year basis after the initial expiration of the original contract agreement. The contract was amended last year for 1 year pending budget review and is set to expire on June 30th, 2019. Using the civilian jail contract services, police officers are able to reduce the time it takes to process arrestees and return to the field to handle calls for service. On average, for police officers, it takes approximately 2 hours to handle a prisoner through the booking process. Using the jail contract services, this processing time has been reduced to 15 minutes, allowing the police officers to return to the field more quickly to handle emergency calls for service. Over the past 4 years, there has been an increase in crime in the city and arrests made by the police department. In 2018, officers made 8,255 arrests for felonies and misdemeanors. This is a 16% increase in arrests from 2017, when officers made 7,101 arrests. The time saved by having the civilian jailers process the arrestees is equivalent of having approximately 6 additional police officers on the street. Geo has performed well for the department for the past 19 years. Geo's jail staff and management has been responsive to our needs and continues to assist our officers in critical need. The financial impact for the Second Amendment will be $591,548 for fiscal year 2019 to 2020, $609,294 for fiscal year 2020 to 2021, and $627,573 for fiscal year 2021 to 2022. Funding is anticipated and is included as part of the biennial budget for fiscal years 2019 to 2020 and 2020 to 2021. It is recommended that City Council approve the Second Amendment to the agreement with Geo Group Incorporated in the amount not to exceed $591,548 for fiscal year 2019 to 2020, $609,294 for fiscal year 2020 to 2021, and $627,573 for fiscal year 2021 to 2022, and authorize the city manager or his designee to sign the agreement and make modifications as needed on behalf of the city. That is the end of my staff report. I'm available for any questions.
And Mr. Mayor, let me just, and members of council, let me just reemphasize, in all my conversations with the police department, they are just very happy with this arrangement. It's really given, it's taken a big burden off the shoulders of a lot of our police officers. Like the chief said, it allows them to get in, get people processed that need to go into the jail, and then they get to be productive and get right back out there, in the neighborhood. So we're just very happy with the arrangement that we've had with them so far.
Move approval.
Call the vote.
Motion received, 7 yes votes.
All right, we got a couple more ordinances for second reading only. 8A.
Item 8A is the second reading and adoption of ordinance number 2906, and this is entitled An Ordinance of the City Council of the City of Garden Grove establishing the amount of money for paramedic services that must be raised by an ad valorem tax override and the setting of the tax rate of said override.
Move it.
Second.
Call to vote.
Motion received, 7 yes votes.
8B, second reading.
8B is second reading and adoption of ordinance number 2892 entitled An Ordinance of the City Council of the City of Garden Grove authorizing an amendment to the contract between the City Council of the City of Garden Grove and the Board of Administration of the California Public Employees Retirement System.
Move it.
Second.
Call to vote. Did you get it? Are we still waiting?
I'm still waiting on Mr. Bowie.
Still didn't do it.
They didn't do it.
He's getting to
There you
it.
go.
Okay. Motion received, 7 yes votes.
All right. Any matters from council members?
Have one, or a few actually. We had one of those community meetings that we are now going to start charging for at the Four Star Theater with the developer there. About 50 members of the community attended. The new project was very well received by the community, overwhelmingly. I don't think I heard anything negative at all, actually. So, real good with that. Some comments on our public service as a city and communication skills as a city. You know, the city of Garden Grove does a pretty good job overall, but you know, quality through continuous improvement. There's things that we can improve on. One of the constant things that I get confronted with, and today a couple of the members got up and talked about it, is the city's lack of communication back with the public on certain things when things are reported. You know, when it comes, you know, to callbacks saying, hey, you know, we're working on it, or we're dealing with it, or just a little, sometimes that's all they need, you know, because we get a lot of complaints, and a lot of the times the city's already dealt with it, but they never bothered to call the complainant back or let them know what's going on. So I think that helps build a little trust and a little, you know, clarity with the community. One lady, I think, was talking about accounting. All she wanted was a simple accounting on her bill. I mean, that's really not too much to ask. I kind of agree with her. I mean, all I wanted is a breakdown. What's what, you know? And, you know, we're going to go put her house on a lien and do all this stuff and threaten her. You know, I think that's very basic for public service. We should be able to do that for our people. So I'm hoping that we can focus on that as a city. And not just her, but, you know, I think we can get better with the whole community in general on these type of things. I literally had a complaint about a month ago now, and it got resolved. I sent an email, I believe anyway, with that being said, they were billing her improperly on her water bill, and you know, all it takes is an email back, a call back, just some communication, and I think most people are happy with that. So, you know, our public service could use a little improvement, I think, on some regards. So I think we should step that up a little bit as a city. The youth commission idea, I think I'd brought that up initially. I'd heard that from a bunch of different groups. You know, I really think a youth commission on its own, the city tried that, and there really wasn't enough work for a commission for that. But I do see combining something like that with, like, the Parks and Recreation Commission to give them a little bit more, because they don't have a lot to do anyway. So it's something I think we could consider as a body to give them a little bit more to deal with, and bring in that youth commission component into our city. I don't think we want to set up a new commission. I don't think there's enough work for a commission, a youth commission, to be honest with you. But to add it to a commission that really doesn't have a lot to do anyway, that might, be a win-win for our community and for that commission, keep them a little busier. And then the last thing, I would like to agendize discussion and possible action on the setting up of council district accounts. We're one of the cities that are districted that don't have them. And these accounts would be a small amount of money that each council district would have access to and their councilmen to spend to improve their community, be it public art project, communication outreach, events, whatever they need to do for their districts without having to get a full vote of the council. And we're talking minor fundage here, not a big account, but I'd like to agendize discussion on that for the next meeting.
Second.
And that's it.
No, we were voting. We were voting.
We're putting that on the agenda. I'm sorry.
Yeah, motion is second for discussion about.
Discussion and action, if possibly.
Yeah. And just, yeah, it's,
Just so to clarify, Omar, if we just put it up for discussion, we don't need to vote on it.
Right, for discussion only, you need to vote, but.
Yeah,
if
my
you
motion
want-
was discussion and possible action if we decide.
If you want action, then you do need a vote.
But we don't need
We
to
need
vote.
vote.
We don't need to vote.
yeah, we just did. And keeping in mind, we just approved the budget, so I don't know how
Well,
that
again,
affects that.
and
But it may
actually,
not,
that
it may not
what
be
I'm talking
material.
about is already accounted for in that
I was
budget,
going to
by
say,
the way.
it may not be material
Yeah.
anyways, because I
Yeah.
think there already kind of is a
Right.
provision, and it maybe just sort of helps to better define the use of those funds, so, okay.
Motion received, 7 yes
Yeah.
votes.
John, anything?
Good, yeah, just real quick. A lot of people ask me, hey, what's going on in the city, especially when it comes to summer activities. They're not sure where to go. Obviously, direct them to the website. But Garden Grove Parks does a great job, Parks and Rec. So if you just Google Garden Grove Parks and Rec, there's a summer guide, 2019. It directs you to all our resources for our parks, all the classes that are available. I think we have 3 pools that are public use. So go check out that Garden Grove Parks and Rec summer guide. And there's a lot of good information in there. And actually, every household is mailed one, I think.
Concerts in the park.
Concerts in the Park is this Thursday, right? Starting? Anyway, that's it.
Anybody else?
I have one item.
Well, hold on.
Kim,
Let me
anything?
go in order, 'cause I
Yeah, too high, anything?
No,
All right, Kim?
I have a couple, but I'll be quick. So, first 2 outdoor movies kicked out last Wednesday at the Elks Lodge with Ralph Breaks the Internet. I think we had roughly about 150 people despite the cold, chilly weather, so that was really great. I did ask staff to beef up their outreach and engagement efforts regarding those events. I think the ones out on the West End are like legacy, so everyone knows to go there. So when we have them in different areas of the city, it's not something that people intuitively think, okay, I'm going to go. And with that, tomorrow at 6:30 p.m., featuring Cat Reed and Back Alley, we have our kickoff summer concerts at the Elks Lodge. And I just want to commend staff for sprinkling those events throughout the city. I know that I've been harping on that for a while, so I'm glad to see that we're actually seeing those continue to occur. I attended the gym reopening this Saturday, definitely long overdue. I had not realized how bad the floor was until I went to the archery event. And so when I attended the event this weekend, the floor looks amazing. The kids were all happy. Family was happy. I'm excited to see everyone get to use quality floor in the gym. Yesterday, I attended the Garden Grove Complete Count Committee meeting. We had a great turnout. There's a lot of outside agencies that were there, although I did have some complaints about some missing people. Shout out to Sean Park for coordinating that and for all the departments that sent representatives to attend. I cannot stress how important the census is. Census 2020 is around the corner. We have several hard-to-count areas in our city. I urge all of my colleagues to go up and look at that map and see all the significant red areas that we have. The only one that's a decent color is District 1. So we all have a lot of work to do in our areas. I stress to those in attendance that I have very little faith in the other levels of government, so this is really going to fall upon our shoulders. So staff needs to get really creative on how we're going to get and engage those individuals to complete the census. There's a lot of unwarranted fear around this, so we need to be sympathetic to that, as well as that's money left on the table. The more people we get counted, the more population account we have as a city, and that makes a lot more money available for us to use. So if none of the heartstrings are pulled with the other incentives, then think of the money. I attended the Parks and Rec Commission special study session regarding the final design for Woodbury Park, which was solely compiled through community input. Great meeting, lots of residents kind of turning the conversation a little bit sideways, but I'll bring that up in a second. I'm really excited that staff is taking this opportunity to apply for that grant. I think I've been talking about Woodbury Park for a while, so I'm excited to see that transition to a space that the whole community can use and have a place to meet and have events. Outside of that, comments were made regarding the parks, some street issues, code enforcement issues, and with that, I want to request that staff look into adding additional park patrol staff. We have 21 parks and we have 2 part-time individuals who patrol the parks. That doesn't add up to me. There's probably not enough hours in the day to monitor all those parks. I did a parks tour today and I happened to see a number of homeless individuals. A lot of residents have complained about seeing drug paraphernalia in the bathrooms, condoms, beer bottles, things like that, and I think that that is unacceptable for our parks. We also close our restrooms. I know I've complained about that before, and they've been opened up for those individuals who are paying to use those parks, so let's be mindful of individuals who are utilizing our space, that they have access to clean restrooms. And lastly, I want to shout out the fact that Hastur and Lamson finally has a left turning light. I think Bill Murray's probably chuckling in the other room at me because I started to clap when I saw it. As a few of you may remember, our first month in office, there was a pedestrian that died, and I know that Stephanie and I emailed staff and tried to see if we could get an assessment. So to see that pole 2.5 years later, that's a big win. So I just wanted to highlight staff for making that happen.
Really quick, earlier this evening, my colleagues and I were out front tipping and tossing our water as part of a vector control effort. Their marketing campaign for the summer is Mission Tip and Toss. And it's just a clever way to bring about outreach and education to the community about mosquitoes and those that breed the West Nile virus. Obviously, we're going into the summer months, which we know mosquito breeding kind of hits its apex, its climax. So we need to be mindful and careful to not only dump and drain that water, but check your screens, wear your bug repellent, and so forth. If you want to request an inspection of your home, they don't just come out and spray any longer. They really come out and talk to you about what you can do differently on your property to protect yourself and your neighborhood at large. Their number is 714-971-2421. You can request service, or they'll answer any questions you have. They're very active and engaged in the community and will definitely help you if you need it. And then quickly, the only other thing I wanted to bring up, and I know my colleague, Councilman Bowie, is going to talk about the coyote issue. I just wanted to give a quick, brief, personal experience. At the last council meeting, we got out extremely late, and I got to my house, and I thought my neighbor's dogs were out, but it turns out there was 2 coyotes sitting basically in my front yard, and they were very large, the size of large dogs. And what was even scarier, and why I called my husband, come out and get me in my car, was because there was 2 more in the street. So that makes a number 4 coyote. Now that in and of itself is scary, but when you start to think of them running together potentially in a pack, that's when I think this takes another turn and becomes an even greater issue. So I think that there's more discussion to be had, and I'm asking myself as a council person, as a resident, as a mom, I want us to be, as a city, proactive, not reactive. And with that, I know, again, my colleague has more on that as well.
Yes, thank you, Councilman Klopfenstein. Over the last few days, I read on Facebook, and I really feel the uneasiness of many of our residents. Now, granted that that coyote issue is all over the maps, and there's many schools, from one extreme to the others. But the feeling and the fears of the resident are real. I feel it's very, very true, and they are really frightened. And when there are hundreds of our residents are frightened and take to social media to express their fears, we got to do something. We cannot just say, hey, there's nothing we can do. That is an answer that I think we cannot have. And I know this issue is very complex, but I would like to, and I promise them that I will bring up to the attention of the city councils. I think at the very minimum, in the next couple of weeks, I'd like the attorneys, annual controls, to look into varieties of things that we can do, and hopefully we can come up with some solutions that are realistic, practical, ranging anywhere from some of which the resident can do themselves to some of the area where I think we got to do for our resident. I do not want to go further tonight, but why don't staff have a detailed study and presentation to the public and to us what are the possible options that we can consider.
And if I may interject, as Maureen Blackman stated about the Garden Grove Neighborhood Association hosting that meeting back in February, I understand it's very easy to place your comments on Facebook and there begins a snowball effect of information and comments and so forth. But please, when community groups or when the city puts on an opportunity for you to learn more, a meeting of some sort, please attend. It's very important. It's very important that you show up and you attend, because there is such vital information that's given in those types of forums that you're not necessarily going to find potentially on Facebook. So I really ask the community, if a community group puts on an event, or if we as a city take that staff time to prepare a report on something that is apparently extremely vital and important to the community, I'm urging you to please attend.
City manager report.
Yes, Mayor, members of council, just first of all, thank you for your support of the budget. The staff put it, it's been a lot of work, over the last 6 months putting it together. So we appreciate all your comments, all your support getting to that point. Gives us a roadmap going forward over the next 2 years. So looking forward to that. Secondly, Mr. Mayor, I don't know if you were going to be mentioning any of this. I know we have a delegation from our sister city. Anyang is here, and they're going to be here visiting Garden Grove over the next 3 days. So I know many of you are going to be participating in meetings and greetings with them. So that's happening. I believe on Thursday we're going to be having a groundbreaking for the BN Group Hotel. It's our first hotel that's being built south of the 22 freeway on Harbor Boulevard. I think it's sort of a landmark, little flag in the ground there, and especially coming in right across the street from the new Kia dealership. Right there, I think, there's a lot of momentum that we can see happening down along there. So good stuff there. On the Coyote stuff, we've seen a lot of it too. We'll start working on some thoughts and ideas, maybe some research on what some other cities have done. And Councilman Bowie, I think, said it's a complex subject. There's lots of solutions. A lot of the solutions come with some challenges too, so we'll try and start thinking about some of those. I know, we do have our Coyote hotline, and people call it, and they wonder how effective it really is. The one thing it does do is it helps us pinpoint where we're getting calls, so we can kind of identify where there might be sort of hotspots, if you will, of lots of activity, and that can be helpful to us. So we will do that. Woodbury Park, we're excited about getting the park, trying to put together a really solid application, and if we could get $6 to $8 million to do a major redo of that park, not only is it a great amenity for the community, but it helps us to start dealing with some of the crime stuff there. So one supports the other. So, and I'll speak to the director about, how he might be able to look at his budget in terms of finding some additional park officers. So have that conversation as well. And just the other comment, it's always a constant, Councilman Brettigan, I know you talked about trying to keep good communication. So we'll kind of give that some more thought and make sure that we're really being cognizant of that. So appreciate the comments there. That's all I had, Mr. Mayor.
Full council. Omar.
Yeah, I just wanted to report that earlier this evening, the city council met in closed session and unanimously authorized the city attorney's office to commence civil abatement proceedings for property located at 11402 Frederick Drive.
Thank you. Do we have any need for closed session for anything after this?
Nope.
Okay.
We're done.
I just have two people I'd like to adjourn in memory of this evening. Councilmember Bradigan brought to my attention. So we'll close in memory of longtime 30-plus year Garden Grove Scout leader, Darlene Wurtsema, yeah, that's one. And then I have another one. This one is tragic. So I'd like to adjourn tonight's meeting in memory of Kyle Parrish. Kyle was a Garden Grove native who recently passed away, leaving his family and friends far too soon. In his young life, Kyle achieved much with his notable athletic skills and was an all-league first-team selection at Santiago High School. He played 2 seasons at Compton Junior College, where he threw for more than 2,500 yards, and in 2008 through 2009, he played 2 seasons as quarterback for the Ferris State Bulldogs in Michigan. There he achieved 2,092 passing yards and 9 touchdowns and rushed for 300 yards on 137 carries and 2 touchdowns. In early 2008, Parrish came off the bench because of an injury and, in his first extensive action, set a school record with 477 yards to lead the Bulldogs to a 31-24 road win over Indianapolis. The total included 404 passing yards, 4th most in school history at the time, and 4 touchdowns on 26 of 41 passing attempts. That included a game-winning 44-yard TD pass with 18 seconds left in the game. Kyle's hard work and dedication to football gave him the opportunity to play in the CFL, and in 2016 he was on staff as quarterback coach at Compton College. For anyone who knew Kyle, services will be held on Saturday, June 29th at 2 p.m. at the Diamond and Shannon Mortuary, 10360 Chapman Avenue. Our heartfelt condolences go to his family and friends, and may Kyle rest in peace. And with that, we are adjourned. Thank you.